Hey, what's going on, everybody? How's it going? What's happening? What is going on? What is going down? It is Saturday, December the 30th, 2023, 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The last stream of 2023. It's hard to believe that 2023 is nearly over, and it will be 2024 in 2 days from now. Hard to believe. I mean, it's crazy how quickly the time flies by. And I thought, it's Saturday night. Why not jump on and talk to you guys and see if anybody rolls on in? I don't know if anybody's going to show up, but why not just do another Q&A? Like I said, I mean, I'm working towards getting back to more of the regular stuff in the new year, of course. Things have just been kind of wonky on my end, but yeah, that's the goal anyway. And so I thought, it's the holidays and it's kind of chill and relax, and why not? Let's just kind of sit and relax and just do another Q&A. It's Saturday night, long weekend. I don't know if anybody's going to show up tonight. I don't know if anybody cares. There's probably some people like, I'm crazy having another Q&A. I don't care. I'm out. You know what I mean? If he's not talking Halloween, I don't fucking care. Hey, there's those people. There are people that do that. I've heard from them that they've actually been open and honest with you about it. Say, hey, Dave, listen, I got to be honest with you. I don't fucking tune in unless you're talking about Halloween. I didn't quite say it like that. Didn't quite phrase it like that. But there are people that that do that. And all the power to them. All the power to you. If all you care about is Halloween, that's okay. You own it. You own it. Great to see people in here. Sarah Carter is in here. Hello, Sarah. Great to see you here. Hey, Dave. Happy almost New Year listening to this while I run. Hey, rock on. That's great. Yeah. Enjoy your run. That's awesome. I like running as well. So, when I was younger, I used to listen to, when I first started running in the 90s, I would have a Walkman with me. And then I graduated to a Discman. Honest to goodness, not one word of a lie, but I never had the Walkman hooked to my pants or the Discman hooked to my pants. Now, the Discman was a bit trickier because it's a CD, and you're thinking, well, if you're running it, isn't that skipping? A lot of them had like anti-skip stuff, and this one was fantastic. It never skipped. I could go like this with it and shake it. It would never skip. And but I couldn't hook that thing to my pants or belt or whatever. It was too big. You can't run with that. And I never was comfortable with running with a Walkman hooked to my belt. Or my pants. I always had like this big clunky thing on the side. So I always ended up holding it. I would just run with it in my hands. Same with the Discman. And then after the Discman in the mid-2000s, I graduated to the MP3 player. But you know what? Over the last 10 years or so, I don't jog with any music anymore. It's just silent. It's just my own thoughts. It's just that's it. But enjoy your run. Davey Deathray is here. Great to see you here, Davey Deathray. He says, no, it's more like when my wife and I go over our schedules for the day, I'm all, well, Dave has a stream at 5, so I'm going to hop on that. Hey, nothing wrong with that. That's great. Hey, Andrew Stevens, one of our great mods, sends in a very generous super chat of $20. Thank you, Andrew, and says, for the McCrazies, here's to 2024. Absolutely. Maybe I should have my little shot glass here that says, welcome to the shit show. Welcome to the shit show. Do you remember when I used to say shit show all the time back in 2017 and 2018? And then you know what I noticed? Everybody else started saying it. I'm not saying I came up with the term. No, I didn't. But I'm just saying that sometimes when you start saying something and it's out there, it catches on and people say, you know what I mean? It's crazy. Nothing like good old water in a shot glass. I don't know where I got this. Maybe I got it from Spencer's. Can't remember. But Yeah, welcome to the shit show. Here's to 2024. Zach Axiola says, how's it going, Dave? Good to see you back. Hope everything's going smoothly so far with It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. Yeah, I've been back for a couple of weeks. This is my 4th stream in 2 weeks, which isn't a lot for me, actually. But things with Billy 2 are going well. We're in post-production. Well, we've begun the post-production process, but we're not done production either. So we're simultaneously, our final day will be Saturday, January 13th. We were location scouting yesterday at Digital Canaries, which is a studio here in the GTA. They have sets and all that kind of stuff, and we need to shoot on a set. And so we were looking at that yesterday, myself and Bruce and Greg, our DP. Went very well. So, our final day of shooting is Saturday, December 13th. And, but we've begun the process, preliminary stuff of piecing some things together, for what we have shot. I mean, we're nowhere near, it's very preliminary. But we will have officially wrapped production, after the 13th of January, and we'll make a post about it, obviously, at that point. It's just a one-day shoot, one scene. But yeah, no, it was a long shoot, like I've said, and a whole different level and a great learning experience. It just makes me, whenever I have I had this experience on Chapter 1, I have it on Chapter 2. It just makes me want to get out there again, and continue to hone my skills and continue to hone my craft, and just to get out there again. It makes me want to do that. Of course, you need the money to be able to shoot at this level. So, you can't just get out there and, you can. I mean, you could shoot a movie on your phone, of course. I mean, we all have cameras in our pockets now, but I just mean shooting at that level. That takes money. And so, but it just makes me excited for, hopefully, the future of our company and shooting movies. I mean, I know Bruce and I would like nothing more. Excuse me. I'm very tired. Bruce and I would like nothing more than to be able to just, do it full time. That's the dream of about 10 trillion filmmakers out there. So, I mean, the odds are not always against or are not always for you. But certainly I think what we've crafted with It's Me, Billy, at the very least, when you watch Chapter 1 and you watch Chapter 2 and you're able to kind of put them together, it shows what we're capable of doing with the, the money that we have, although it's a lot of money. I mean, between the two films, it's about a $200,000 picture at the end of the day. But in the world of movies, that's not a lot. And certainly I think we've done a really good job at putting every cent that we can on the screen and using our resources and connections to be able to, really make something special and make it look like instead of a $200,000. And again, I'm combining both parts, both chapters. Instead of a $200,000, film per se, it looks like a $2 million film. And that's something that I think we'll be very proud of. Because if this is what we can do with, 200,000, what could we do with 2 or 5 million, right? And so, but no, it went well, and we're very excited to, just get into the weeds and start fine tuning it and start getting ready. It's the 50th anniversary next year. And so, I'm hoping that there can be there'll be a lot of buzz around the 50th anniversary for Black Christmas. I'm hoping there'll be some good buzz around our Chapter 2 and Chapter 1 as well. I mean, every year around this time, Chapter 1 does well. It gains about another 5,000 to 7,000 views. We're closing in on 70,000 now for Chapter 1, which is great. And but of course it's a Christmas horror movie, and it has Black Christmas in the title, so it's not like Halloween or Friday, that even though they're based on holidays per se, they have, you know, superseded their own, you know, name. I mean, they are so big because of the franchise, because they're franchises, and so people watch those movies, you know, every month, every, you know, all year. When it comes to Black Christmas, which is very clearly a Christmas horror movie, it only really gets popular in and around the holidays. So, and unfortunately, we fall into that category. There's not too many, you know, It's Me, Billy does okay throughout the year, but it skyrockets when it hits the holidays, which makes sense. So that's probably what it'll be anyway, for the foreseeable future. But next year is the 50th anniversary, so we're hoping that, you know, that can really help us as, you know, as well. So it's very exciting. We're very excited about it. You know, lots to go on. A very generous super chat comes in from Lee the Machine Bowers. My man Lee sends in a very generous $49.99 US shekels and says, "Hey Dave, happy almost New Year's, my friend, and stay safe. This is for the channel, and it's New Year's Eve. Tomorrow's New Year's Eve, and I'm not wearing any. Oh, it's New Year's Eve, and I'm not wearing any underwear. Oh, I know what that's from. Cheers, my friend, for New Year's. Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's very generous of you. Yeah, and I'm not wearing any underwear. Yeah, that's that from that Halloween skit I did. Well, I dubbed my own voice into the meeting between Brackett and Laurie in the original Halloween, and all the audio is well, the only audio that is from the actual movie is her dialogue. I had to cut around it, so I used Laurie's dialogue, and then the birds you kind of hear in the air and the, you know, the fall is, I added in that because I had to add in that to be able to cut around the audio of her dialogue, and then I just was, you know, Brackett. That's what that's from. At least I think that's where you're drawing it from. Very cute. Let me see here. Josh McKenna sends in $9.99. Thank you, Josh. And says, one, on Christmas Eve, I had some chocolate milk as a treat. Hey, that's great. Awesome. Chocolate milk. It's great stuff. Believe it or not, although I'm a big chocolate milk guy, once in a blue moon, I will buy chocolate milk from the grocery store and have it here at home and have it. But believe it or not, it's rare. I hardly ever buy it. The only time I will buy it is if I'm going through the drive-through at Tim Hortons, you know, or, you know, out at a restaurant or something like that. But yeah, no, I love chocolate milk. So much so that everybody, like from my friends to you guys to the cast and the crew of Billy, they all know that I, you know, they'll always poke fun at me in a, you know, loving way, of course, of my chocolate milk obsession. And two, what is your favorite Clark Griswold moment? For me, it's Where's the Tylenol? Oh man, yeah, that is a great moment from Christmas Vacation. There's so many. I mean, I adore the original Vacation, and I would say that I don't know. There's so many great moments. There's so many great moments. You know, I mean, look, I you know, you probably heard me say on this channel, listen, I don't give a frog's fat ass. I've been saying frog's fat ass for, I mean, since I was in high school. I mean, my high school friends can be able to tell you that, oh, he's been saying that since, you know, the 90s, probably before that. So there's a scene in the original Vacation where he says that. I think it's after he's gone and they've got the tires, new tires put on the car, but they're four ball tires, like they don't have any tread or anything, and they're in the car, and oh God, why am I forgetting his wife's name? Clark and Beverly D'Angelo plays her. Anyway, I'm blanking on her name for some reason. It's 45 next year. That's what's coming. But she's driving, and he's in the passenger seat, and they're having a conversation. He says something like, "Listen, I don't give a frog's fat ass who went through what." And for whatever reason, as a young impressionable kid, that stuck with me. Frog's fat ass. Because they were talking about going through Ellen. That's it. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Ellen. I'm blanking. They were going through Aunt Edna's purse. And he's like, listen, I don't give a frog's fat ass who went through what. And I still say frog's fat ass today. And nobody I know says it. And it's probably because it's not an actual, it's from that film. And I just caught on. So that's one of my favorites. I love when he's like, Russ. And Russ is like right beside him. And he's like, I'm right here, Dad. Russ. Oh, there you are. It's just so great. I mean, I love Chevy Chase, so I think that, but yeah, the Christmas Vacation and his monologue is pretty good too. It's pretty good too. All right. I don't think I missed any super chats. Just want to make sure. MAGA Cat sends in $4.99. Thank you, MAGA, and says, for every minute you are angry, you lose 60 seconds of happiness. Give someone a hug that needs one. Well, there you go, MAGA. There you are. There you are. Thank you, MAGA, for the super chat. I really appreciate that. And yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. It's probably true. Oh, and this is your third super chat. It says right there, let's celebrate their third super on a live stream. It's only MAGA's third super chat. Amazing. Custom Footwear, my man, says, hey, Dave, any episodes of Two Dudes coming up soon? Next year, yes, which is only 2 days from now. But no, we are planning on getting back into the swing of things, I would assume next month. At some point. I mean, we're so close to our 200th episode that, we got to at least reach that. We're just taking a break and obviously with the holidays here, and there's been a lot going on in my life, and between the movie and, a bunch of other things. And so, but yeah, my goal is to get back into more of some sort of routine in the new year, obviously. But also, I don't know, I'm always trying to think of new things to do, keep it fresh. I don't want to be stale, things like that. It's hard because I'm not a movie reviewer, right? So it's fairly, I'm not gonna say it's fairly easy. It's not easy. But if you are a movie reviewer, like that is who you are, like a Cody Leach or, who's, he's just fantastic. Your content is sort of provided for you. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy what you're going to do, but there's movies every year and he knows what movies he's going to review and it's all there for him to do. He's just got to figure out, he's got to go, he has to go and do it. For me, because I'm not a movie reviewer and there's no expectation that I'm going to review the latest and greatest that comes out, I always have to figure out sort of, what topics do I want to discuss? What do I want to do? Because not everything interests me. There's a lot of things that I understand that interest the general population, but I'm just like, look, if I was into superheroes, oh my God, this channel would be huge. If I was, with my ability to talk, and analyze and give insight. And if I was really into like Marvel and DC and, the cinematic universes and all this kind of stuff, oh my God, could you imagine? I'd be, it's just channel would be huge. But I just don't care. I never was into that as a kid. I never got into superhero. Like I said, I've only seen like 4 or 5 Marvel movies. I never was, and it's not that I don't, again, I say this, it's not that I don't think I'm not going to like it. It's that I don't have an already built-in invested interest, and invested, I don't mean financially, I just mean emotionally, that I don't naturally gravitate towards it. It's like how some people are Star Wars fans and some people aren't. Like maybe you're not a Star Wars fan. But that's not you necessarily saying I hate Star Wars or that I don't think that if I actually took the time to sit down and actually watch it, that I wouldn't enjoy it. No, I probably would enjoy it. I just don't care enough about, the IP to make the effort to do that. And that's what this is for me when it comes to like superhero movies, right? I don't care, like unless it's like a Batman or a Superman or a Spider-Man, I've pretty much seen all the modern day films of those. because they're like your staples. Do you know what I mean? Like they're kind of like, but when it comes to like the universes and this man and that woman and this woman and it's like Game of Thrones. I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones. I've never seen an episode of The Walking Dead. It's not that I don't believe I could actually, that I would not like it. It's that I just don't already have an invested interest emotionally to make the effort to take the time to sit down and watch it. You know what I mean? And so when you don't have that, and there's quite a few things that are really popular in the mainstream, like your comic book movies, your Marvel, your DC, your Batman, your Spider-Man, your Aquaman, your, the whatever, like it's huge, right? And I'm just like, it's too bad. I'm not like about all that stuff, because if I was, I'd probably have like 200,000 subs by now. Because I'd be like, every week I'd be having these shows and analyzing. Okay, this is what's coming up now. The Marvel Cinema. I mean, could you imagine me doing all that shit? Oh my God. So, but I just am like, meh. You know what I mean? And although I'm a Star Wars fan, I'm not the kind of Star Wars fan that is like heavily emotionally invested into the whole, like the comics and the games and the books and the Knights of the Old Republic. I'm like, oh my God, that's just too much, man. Like to me, Star Wars is the movies and that's it. Like I'm just like the good and the bad. Like, you know what I mean? I'll take the good movies. I'll take the bad movies. That's it for me. And I can't even, but there are YouTube channels out there that they're like, whoa, they're hardcore, just as hardcore as some of the channels about superhero films. They're hardcore about Star Wars, and they know all about the books and the comics and the lore and the mythology. And thousands of years ago, this night of this, thing, and this is where this I'm just like, oh my God, it's too much. I'm just like, I'm Vader, Emperor Luke. Like that's my Star Wars world, So, but Halloween, I'm like that with Halloween. The problem when it comes to slasher movies and Halloween in particular is that the pond is not as, the pond, the ocean, the lake is not as deep. The pool is not as deep. Right? There's not, when it comes to, there's like superhero, the decades and decades and decades of comics and mythology and graphic novels and television shows and cartoons and movies and artwork. And it's just so rich and deep. There's thousands and thousands and thousands, when it comes to Halloween, I've gone pretty hardcore on this channel when it comes to Halloween, right? But you can only take it so far because there's only so much material, right? And so one of my biggest things is trying to figure out, what am I interested in? Like, what am I truly passionate about that I could get on here and talk? Because again, I'm not a movie reviewer. It's not that I won't review a movie once in a while if I'm really passionate about it, right? Like the Indiana Jones one or, the Halloween ones. But, I really gotta, so it's just that I find for me is always trying to, think, what am I going to do that I'm going to be able to bring to my audience so we can continue to grow the channel, get new viewers, not give people the wrong impression of who I am and what the content is, but keep it fresh and interesting. And, years ago, somebody said, and they were absolutely right. They said, you're more like talk radio, and it's true that really is in a nutshell kind of what I am like. With talk radio, though, there isn't too many entertainment talk radio shows, right? They're usually, political or, all that kind of stuff. And that's the last thing I want to get into. I just need to figure out sort of, how to keep things fresh and what other interesting things I want to talk about. The other problem is that not everybody, of course, but a lot of people only subscribed and tuned into me because of Halloween. So when I start talking about other things, even though I find them interesting, and they may learn a thing or two if they actually tuned in and pay attention, right? Talking about the industry or voiceover or other movies, other stuff. not everybody's like, you know what I mean? And that's understandable. I mean, when you spring onto the scene as the Halloween guy or one of the Halloween guys, when you start talking about other things, people are like, I don't really care about that. When in reality, they should actually tune in and pay attention because they would learn a thing or two, or they might find it funny, or, whatever. But that's another thing that you have to do as well, right? It's one of the reasons why I just call my channel by my name, because very early on, like in the beginning, I thought about calling it like, the Halloween guy or Halloween this, whatever. And then I thought, well, no, I don't want to be backed into that corner. I want to talk about a bunch of stuff that I find interesting. And it's got to be stuff that I find interesting, because if I don't find it interesting, then it just doesn't do anything for anybody. You know what I mean? So, but it'll be interesting to see where, the next year goes, and who knows? I mean, maybe, man, but I would love to be able to make movies for a living. I would. It'd be a dream. It would be a dream come true to have a budget of like $5 million, right? And to be able to make the movie you want to make, whatever that is. And Bruce and I have a few ideas. One in particular that that we were working on that I would still love to do. I think it's got commercial viability. It's in the horror genre. It's not a slasher, but it's dripping in my signature mood and atmosphere. And I think it needs some fine tuning, of course, because we only did up a treatment. But it's I would love to do that. But that's a film that's probably like, $2 or $5 million budget, right? I mean, it's a feature and it's larger, and, a few locations and, water and all that, the second you add water in there and it's like, fuck, because there's rain and thunder and, that ups your budget. But I'd love to do it. But, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Okay, super chat from Lee the Machine Bauer sends another $9.99. Thank you, Lee, and says, me and my girlfriend and friends did a Black Christmas 1974 and It's Me, Billy Chapter 1 double feature on Christmas night. Yes, I showed them the teaser for Chapter 2 afterwards, and they are hyped for it. Amazing. Well, shout out to your girlfriend and your friends. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. That's awesome. That's so great. It's so cool to see, people discovering it. Which is really nice. Because again, I mean, It's Me, Billy, because it's part of an IP that really only gets love around the holidays. Its view count is, it makes sense where it's at, 70,000. But, again, because it's not Michael Myers or Freddy, it doesn't have the weight of that to carry it. And that's not knocking the, I'm not saying that to say that the only reason why other fan films that have Freddy and Michael or whatever is become, I'm not saying that, but certainly it is a huge, gigantic factor. I mean, I've seen, Halloween fan films shot in the backyard on an iPhone with terrible lighting and, camera work have like 500,000 views. Well, why do you think they have 500,000 views? Because it's a Halloween fan film, right? And much like the box office, it's not like you can take that view back. So when you start watching a video, whatever it is, if you watch for, I think it's 30 seconds. I think you have to watch for at least 30 seconds or a minute or something like that. That counts as a view, right? So, it's where the interest lies. There's far more interest in Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees than there is in Billy, from Black Christmas, right? So, but maybe next year for the 50th anniversary, we'll be able to change some of that, which is very exciting. So, yeah. Thank you, Lee. Flat Movies and Pop Culture 13 sends in a member chat. Thank you, Flat, and says, hey, Dave, cheers, being 2-month member, and hope you're doing well. Thank you, Flat. Appreciate that very much. Thank you for being a channel member for 2 months. I see there you have the little Victoria there, Sam avatar. Appreciate that very much. Thank you, Flat. Melissa says, Melissa's talking to Warren. Well, that's all right. You guys are having a conversation. Thank you, Melissa. Magic Marker. Good evening, Dave. I came for Halloween and have stayed for the passion about film. Amazing. Well, that's what I hope, right? Is that people stay because like I get it. I get the interest in Halloween, you know, and the second there's an announcement in regards to Halloween and another movie or a TV series, you know, the interest is going to go through the roof again, right? But it's like that with every channel, right? I mean, everybody watches everybody for, you know, whatever reason they watch for. And again, like I sprung onto the scene in 2017 as one of the Halloween guys. And that's how people found me. That's how people discovered me. But it is nice to hear, you know, from people like yourselves to say, oh yeah, no, I came for the Halloween content, but I stayed, what's that saying? Well, it's not quite the same saying, but you know that saying, like, I came to mock, but I stayed to rock, you know, not that you came to mock, but, you know, but you know, and yeah, it's very appreciated. Thank you. And hopefully I've been able to, you know, keep it interesting. And, but I do understand that, you know, yeah, I'm not maybe I would be I know I'd be a lot further along if I actually reviewed the latest and greatest films, because then that helps the algorithms, right? You with the keywords and, you know, having a name like, I don't know, you know, Aquaman or, you know, Aquaman's shit. I mean, can you imagine if I did a you know what I mean? A video like that, Aquaman 2 is garbage. And I was on, you know, and I was on the thumbnail like this. Right? I mean, you know, of course those views are going to get hits. Of course they are, right? But it's just not my style, you know? It's not my style. Not that, hey, if that's your style, that's cool. But Evil Monsterism sends in a member chat. Thank you, buddy. Says, happy almost New Year's, Dave. Thank you. Have you seen the unused alternate opening to Resurrection with Kid Myers? It's on YouTube, and I actually think it's really good, unlike the rest of Resurrection. Yeah, it's true. I might have. I'm not sure. I'll have to watch it again and see, or I'll have to watch it and see if I have or not. I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, if I have, it hasn't been in a while because it's not ringing any bells. But for some reason, I have this feeling like I have, but I'm not entirely sure. So I'll have to check that out. Zach Axiola says, thoughts on the trailer for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I like how they're taking a risk with a new villain. It looks like it'll sort of be a darker story while still keeping the trademark Ghostbusters humor. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was, you know, I mean, it was good. I did not like it. I agree. I think this is the big test now, right? This is the big test. And this is what I always say, you know, when you're doing a legacy sequel, I don't know if Billy 2 really counts. I mean, the Billy films are obviously legacy sequels. But because it's essentially one movie, we're just now completing the movie. I'm not sure if this counts in the same way as the example I'm about to say. But, you know, when you take franchises, you know, like Star Wars, you know, and Ghostbusters and all that, you know, there's that, they go back to go forward, right? So Star Wars, there was The Force Awakens, and I will die on this hill, and this wasn't that long ago. Not that everybody liked The Force Awakens, not everybody did, but the vitriol and venom and the hatred for the Disney sequel trilogy, or Disney's Star Wars, was not there after The Force Awakens. It was there after The Last Jedi. How soon we forget. That wasn't that long ago. So The Force Awakens, not everybody liked it, but The Force Awakens they went back, they delivered something familiar and able to go forward because Star Wars was in the shitter. Ghostbusters Afterlife did the same thing, right? They, you know, there was the Ghostbusters 2016 movie, which I actually didn't mind, but Ghostbusters is a franchise, not quite in the same shitter as Star Wars, but still kind of in the dumps, you know, whatever. So what did they do? They went back to go forward. They delivered a familiar Ghostbusters movie, tapped into the nostalgia and the Easter eggs, delivered a familiar villain, and it was a hit. It was really good. It got us all, you know, oldies from the 80s going, oh, this is really good, right? Now here comes the test, right? Is this going to be another Last Jedi moment, right? Or is this going to be something different? Not really sure. right? So this is the real test. You've delivered the familiar. You've instilled trust into the fan base again. And now what's going to happen? Scream, same thing, right? Now, Scream was not in the shitter, but Wes Craven had died. So Wes Craven, this would be the first Scream 5, right, from 2022, was going to be the first Scream movie without Wes Craven. Oh, what is this going to be? Oh my God, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. So not quite the same situation, but they still needed to earn, Radio Silence needed to earn the trust of the Scream fan base. So we're like, what is it going to be like? And what did they do? They delivered a safe and familiar Scream movie, right? A little bit of nostalgia, going back. They didn't get too crazy with it, too avant-garde, because they needed to show you that, hey, we too can do a Scream movie. And that's what now they still push the narrative forward. They introduced, Tara and Sam. Is her name Sam as well? I think her name is Sam. A lot of Sams, a lot of Samanthas. Anyways, Melissa Barrera is the actress, but they deliver something, because I watched Scream 5 and I was like, yeah, it's fine. It's good. It's a Scream movie. And then before Scream 6 came out, I remember having this exact conversation, this exact analogy, where I said, well, now that they've delivered something safe, now it looks like they're taking a risk, right? They're going to New York City. You know what I mean? They're going, now what is this going to be a Last Jedi moment, or is this going to be, And I don't think Scream 7 was a Last Jedi moment, but I still think Scream 7 was, I don't want to say it was safe, but it was sort of, I find the Scream franchise at this point diminishing returns. I don't think they're taking ironically, I didn't want Scream 7 to be like avant-garde, but I felt like there was some risks they could have taken that they didn't. And one of those things was I would have absolutely loved it. And I don't know if the studio would have, but I would have loved it. And I said this way back when. I said, imagine that each Scream movie is its own story in and of itself, right? And it's a Scooby-Doo episode. And I say that with love. We don't know who the killers are, or the killer or the killers. And then by the end of the movie, the mask comes off, the killers stand there for, 5 minutes telling you why they're so evil, you damn kids. Sorry. And then they get caught or killed, you damn kids. And that's the end of the movie. And it never ends on a cliffhanger. Every Scream movie you can watch and not have to watch, and you know what I mean? There's no like, oh my God, I need to find out what happened next. And they're designed that way because they're whodunits. And that makes sense. But I remember saying I would have loved it if Scream 6 had ended on a cliffhanger, something that's never been done before. Never been done before. Never been done before. And we don't know who the killer is or killers are. And maybe Tara and Sam, they're there and they're bloodied and they're lying there and Ghostface is towering over them and he's got the knife and he wipes the knife like this, whatever. It's like, holy fuck, we've never, like, usually by this point in the movie, we're having our Scooby-Doo moment and it's not happening. It's not row, it's not happening, right? Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? And then it just, you see Ghostface, it's like this ominous low angle shot looking up at him, maybe there's some clouds behind or whatever, some dark ominous clouds. He's looking down, you just cut to black and you roll credits. It's like, oh, what the fuck? That's never happened in a Scream movie. Like, that's the kind of thing. Now, obviously you have to know where you're going. You can't just do that for the sake of what I'm saying here. You have to have, it has to be properly motivated. You have to have the trajectory of, the trajectory of where you're going. But that's what I would have loved to have seen. Right? Is something like that where it takes it just, again, it's not arbitrary risks. They're calculated, they're properly motivated, but it just brings Scream into a bit of a some new flavor. Scream 6, although it was based in New York, Montreal, it's another Scream movie. You know what I mean? Like at this point, I feel like Scream's gotta do something, but hey, they're making millions of dollars and that's all that matters, right? But anyway, I digress. What else is new? But yes, I did like the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire teaser trailer, and I'm hoping it's good. A lot of it was shot overseas though. A lot of it, New York is actually Glasgow, is it? or I don't know where. It's somewhere over in the UK, I think. They did obviously get, B-roll and insert shots of the car driving down New York streets and things like that. But I think it was shot over there, or at least part of it was shot overseas. But anyway, yeah, no, I liked it. Movie Chat and More, Part 2, sends in £5. It says, "Hi Dave, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too, Richard. When you were away making Billy 2, I got my McRae fix by watching the early Two Dudes episodes. Brand new to me and brilliant. Very cool." Yeah, that stems back. We started doing that in the fall of 2018. So that's a long time ago. Yeah. There's a lot. Well, what are we up to now? 194 episodes or something like that. And that's only because we don't do them every week. Sometimes we take time off. I can't do it. He can't do it. We both can't do it. And we'd probably be at like 500 episodes or more. But we're closing in on our 200th episode. But yeah, that's really cool. That's great. I'm glad people go back to to see that. New Nightmare. Hey, Nightly, what's going on? Nightly Gaimo was one of our executive producers on It's Me Billy Chapter 1. He's one of our co-producers on It's Me Billy Chapter 2. Nightly, you're amazing. But you know you are. Sends in $9.99 and says, "Happy New Year to all the McCrazies. Rock on." That's it. Rock on 2024. 2024. Dream Villain says, "Thoughts on Thanksgiving? I've yet to see it. For me, it was a mix of Scream, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw. I know what you did last summer with My Bloody Valentine ending. That was decent." Wow, that's quite a mishmash of movies there. I've yet to see Thanksgiving. It's on PVOD right now, but I'm not about to drop $25 to just watch it myself. So I mean, I could, but I just can't. I'm just like, I don't want to spend $25. I don't want to see it bad enough. Let's put it that way. I will wait until it comes down in price. But I hear good things about it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm looking forward to seeing Lynn's cameo. Lynn Griffin. She has because it was shot up here in Port Perry, Ontario, which is also where they shot it Chapter 1 and 2, I believe. And I think White supplied the gear for Thanksgiving, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check with Bruce. But yeah, they were shooting that it came out in November, but they were shooting it in March and in April of last year. Because I've told this before, but when we reached out to Lynn to inquire about bringing her on board onto It's Me Billy, she was actually on the Thanksgiving set shooting. And we reached out to her, I think in March or April maybe, March or April of last year. So, yeah. So, and I believe her cameo is in the beginning of the movie at the dinner table or something. That's what I hear. Shout out to Lynn if she's watching. Where Nomad has gone before sends in $6. Thank you. Says, "So Dave, saying there isn't much blood or on-screen kills in Black Christmas, are you saying Billy lacks motivation and determination as Jason or Michael?" No, that's not what I'm saying at all. No, I've never said that. There isn't as much blood in Black Christmas because it's a stylistic choice. It's a creative choice. It's a different era as well, right? So, the original Black Christmas is 1974, and unless you were a real exploitative, grindhouse kind of movie from the 70s, the excessive gore and extreme violence or seeing a lot of blood was not a thing. I mean, it was a thing, but it was more like underground exploitative stuff, not necessarily mainstream. And Black Christmas, although low budget, was more of a mainstream low budget horror movie. But again, the style of horror has changed, right? Because we've been desensitized. And so, as with anything, as technology expands exponentially and gets more crazy and crazy and crazy, so do our tastes and so do our desires. And so, they just keep pushing the boundaries and pushing the boundaries. And so, that's just the way it was. I mean, look at the original Halloween, right? The original Halloween is one of the tamest horror movies in history. I mean, it is, as much as we love it, and it is a classic, and it is an influential film, one of the great influential horror films of all time. When you look at it, and you look at the style, right? And that was intentional because Irwin Yablans wanted a theater of the mind, more of a Hitchcock kind of movie, which essentially is what Black Christmas is. More of that suspense, psychological, and especially back then. I mean, Halloween is, you don't see any blood at all apart from the blood on the chest of the Phelps garage guy. I mean, there's really nothing, and he strangles everybody. He strangles Linda, he strangles Bob, he strangles Annie, he strangles everybody, right? So it's more about style. And so now Black Christmas never spawned a franchise. There was never a franchise, right? 2 remakes, right? 2006 and 2019. And then, I know we're unofficial, but we're the only people to have done it. We are a production company now. So we are the only production company to have done it, which is It's Me, Billy. And so, although it's an unofficial sequel, it is a sequel nonetheless, and professional through and through, and we're the only ones to have done it. So outside of the 2 remakes and our film, or films, chapter 1 and 2, there's never been, there was never an opportunity for Black Christmas and the Billy character to embed itself into the pop culture zeitgeist. And you don't have to have good movies to do that. I mean, generally speaking, even the bad movies make some money and they keep those characters in the pop culture, right? And I mean, there was a slew of garbage Friday the 13th movies and a few bad Elm Street movies and quite a few shitty Halloween movies. And so, but they still made some money, some more than others, and they still kept the character in the pop culture zeitgeist. And that's really what it's about. Billy he's never had a sequel, except for us. So there was never an opportunity for him to really kind of embed himself as one of the titans in the horror genre, right? Like your Leatherface, your Michael, your Jason, your Freddy, your Chucky, because they spawned actual franchises. And so no, I'm not saying that at all. It's just a different style of filmmaking. I mean, It's Me, Billy chapter 1 and 2 are modern day films, right? They're not old school, but we still adapted and adopted the same style of filmmaking, which is that theater of the mind, Hitchcock, because we wanted our films to feel like they lived and breathed in the same universe. That when you watch Black Christmas and you watch It's Me, Billy, although It's Me, Billy has modern production value and modern sound design and all that kind of stuff, the style of filmmaking, right? The way we directed the film, the way that we crafted the films, still feels like it's canonically connected to that original film. And that's deliberate, right? So there is some blood in chapter 2. There was some blood in chapter 1, but it's nothing gratuitous. It's nothing, it's not like we're showing heads being chopped off, blood, guts, and gore, and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's just a style. It's a style. Like, look at the death scene with Justine, right? In It's Me, Billy chapter 1, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, the death scene when Billy leaps onto the bed and starts stabbing, right? Oh my God, amazing. And I think we counted like 22 stabs or something like that. Incredible. Now, I know there were some people when the movie first came out, there were some people that were reviewing the movie on Letterboxd who said, "Oh, I guess it was great, but the low budget hindered them because we didn't see for example, we didn't see that much of the death, and it's like, no, you're incorrect. You're not getting it. Nothing about It's Me, Billy 1 or 2 has been hindered by its low budget." Right. And again, they're, between the two films, it's, $200,000, but in the world of movies, that's still not very much. Right. Because we are crafting a movie to be made for that much money. So it's not like if we had more money, we would have shown Justine's head being decapitated or something. What you see, that's a stylistic choice, right? That's Hitchcock. That's theater of the mind, right? So when we set up the camera behind the bed and you just see Billy coming down and you hear the sounds of the stabs and you see his shadow on the wall from the moonlight coming down like this, that's on purpose. We're not showing you the death, not because we don't have the budget to show you, but because it's deliberately crafted that way. That's a stylistic choice. So those things, again, and again, I mean, these aren't actual professional reviewers that are necessarily reviewing it, right? These are people that are just kind of watching it and thinking that maybe it should be more. But that's a choice. That was deliberate. It's far more haunting and eerie. Oh my God, you just see this man coming down like this, boom, boom, like this. And you hear the stabbing and the screaming and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, and you hear the sounds like, oh my God, it's crazy. It's classic. It's classic. I love that stuff, right? Now, you don't see that stuff too much anymore because we are far beyond that sort of nowadays. But I like that. And so that's a deliberate creative choice. So yeah, no, it has nothing to do with that I don't think his motivations or determinations were not the same as Michael and Jason. I mean, you watch the original Black Christmas and he's fucking killing people. I mean, look at him kill. I mean, the Barb death, right? Margot Kidder. He's got the glass unicorn and he's up there and he's going like this and he's coming down and he's stabbing her and all that kind of stuff. If that was today, you'd see blood, you'd see her breasts, you'd see everything. It's just a stylistic choice, right? That's all it is. Let me see. Super chat from Josh McKenna. Thank you, Josh. $9.99 says, I watched the Billy-a-thon episode this week where Victoria told her goose story. I just had to watch it so I could hear her tell the story. Rest in peace, Mr. Goose. Oh, yes. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, this is before. Yeah, that's so funny. Oh, I should have got. And she's wrapped, so she's not going to be there on the last day of shooting. But that was a story. Victoria was, I think it was, this is before I met her, a few years ago, 2017 to 2018. I think she was driving in the winter to some shoot she was doing. I don't know if it was a film or a commercial. She was there all day, and then they just let her go, which does happen, by the way. And she didn't shoot at all that day, as far as I know. I'll have to get the details from Victoria. But and then I think on her way home, she saw a Canada goose. She says that there was a goose on the road, and she didn't see it, or she saw it at the last minute, and she ran over it. But it couldn't. I don't know. I mean, those Canada geese. I don't know if it had to have been a Canada goose. They're huge. So I don't know if maybe she thought she ran over it and she just missed it or what. I don't know. But if Victoria was here, she'd be able to tell the story way better than I did. So yeah, that became sort of an inside joke between everybody. Jordan Christie sends in $4.99. Thank you, Jordan. Says, hey, Dave, what was it like working with and hang out with Lynn Griffin in person on set? Oh, great. Absolutely great. Yeah, Lynn is just, a true professional, patient, full of great ideas about her character. And it was awesome. And her husband, by the way, who's also an actor as well. I mean, he's been in Wayne's World and Back to the Future and Umbrella Academy. So he's in the movie. He plays Sam's dad. Because if you watch chapter 1, right, there's that moment in chapter 1 where Justine says, what time is your dad going to be here tomorrow? And Sam says, not till 2, right? So obviously we're picking up right where chapter 1 left off. So we're expecting daddy. But anyway, so Lynn's husband, Sean, plays Sam's dad, which is pretty cool. And he's so much fun. They both are. They're just both a hoot. And a lot of fun. Just a lot of fun. And of course they stayed at the house as well for the few days that they were there. And we had a chance to work with them and hang out with them and shoot the shit and just, it was great. Just a lot of fun. A lot of funny behind the scenes thinks and not stuff that I can always, that I can necessarily share either, as much as I would love to. There's just some funny things and just a lot of fun, just an absolute hoot to hang out with. And everybody was, I mean, it was such a nice time and a familiarity. So, no, they were great. Lynn was great. And of course the last scene that we're shooting on, January the 13th, is a scene that involves Lynn. So she will be there again. I don't know if her husband will be there or not. Maybe her husband will come to hang out. I'm not sure, but he's more than welcome to, but Lynn will be there. And that's, she's, on the last day is one of her scenes. So a very important scene, actually. She was great. Kiss My Flapjack says both Black Christmas and Halloween 1978 work wonderfully with the lack of gore and graphic violence. Yeah, and it's an era long gone, right? That's why I always tell people that, you got to watch any movie, but certainly horror movies, because, you got to watch them within the context of when they came out. And that's harder to do if you're old, if you're younger, right? I mean, I know there's a lot of people that just can't watch anything from the 70s or 80s. Now they're generally a lot younger than me. But it's, you have to, I mean, let's be honest, somebody watching like a 15-year-old watching a movie from the 80s today would be like when I was 15 watching a movie from the 50s, right? I mean, it's old, man. The production values have changed. They were shot on film back then. So you got the film grain and the way things were cut and edited and the sound. It was very different than the way it is now. It's far more polished now, sometimes a little too polished. And so, we always have to just make sure that we watch movies, within their context. Like I actually watched for the first time. I hadn't seen it. I thought I had seen it, but I hadn't. I watched for the first time about a week or so ago. I watched Wes Craven's Last House on the Left, his first film. Sean S. Cunningham producing. I'd never seen it. I thought I did. Nope, I'd never seen it. Now that is a very low budget, fly by the seat of your pants, guerrilla filmmaking kind of thing. They were wearing a lot of different hats. You watch that movie and it's dated. It's way more dated than, and way more low budget than Halloween or Black Christmas. But I'm watching it within its context and can totally understand when that movie came out in 72, 3, whatever it was, that would have been kind of crazy to watch. Right? It was a much more innocent, naive world back then. That's why films today, it's so hard to really shock people today. You have Terrifier, and this is not a knock on the Terrifier guys, because I like the guys a lot. But it almost feels like we have to go to that extreme in order to truly shock an audience. And it's I don't want to say I want to say it's cheap. That's not the right word, but it feels like we have to now go to something that is, relatively not easy, not cheap. What's the word I'm looking for? Maybe a little, I'm trying to think of the right word. Maybe it'll come to me. Because to put Terrifier together, I mean, it takes an immense amount of work to do that. But it feels like in 2023 and in 2024, we have to go to these extremes in order to be truly shocked. And, there were people coming out, like, look at all the people that walked out of The Exorcist, okay, in 1973. They walked out of The Exorcist, okay? And there were people, you can watch the news reports on this. This is not a Blair Witch situation where there are reports of, Blair Witch is so scary, people were throwing up. No, that's not true. Yes, it's true people were throwing up, but it's not true that it was so scary. And I know this for a fact because I worked at a movie theater in the summer of 1999 when the Blair Witch Project came out. And I remember vividly walking past the Blair Witch Auditorium And I don't know what it was a quiet Saturday afternoon, whatever. And I was just walking past. I'm working. And this girl, the door flings open. This girl rushes out, and she's there, and she stands in front of me off to the side, and she goes, and she throws up all over the ground. And I'm there, and I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? Oh, yeah, I'm okay. It was the motion sickness. It was the motion sickness because the film was shot on, what was it shot on? 16, whatever it was. They blew the film up to the size of this screen. A lot of it's handheld. So there's a lot of this. And I remember going in, because this is back when these big stadium style seat theaters were first opening, at least here in Canada. And I remember, and we actually would introduce the movie. They got rid of it because, not everybody can be as polished as me. Because, these are, but when they first opened, they actually would have one of the employees, Dave, one of the employees would introduce the movie and tell you how long it is and all that kind of stuff. And I remember going into the theater with this girl who I worked with, and we got these little popcorn bags, and I was introducing Blair Witch. And I said, now, so does anybody here in the audience suffer from motion sickness? And probably about a quarter of, the theater was like this, they put their hands up. So we went up and down the aisles handing out these little doggy bag type things, right? Little popcorn bags, just in case people were going to throw up. And people thought we were joking. We're not. That's what was happening with Blair Witch, was motion sickness. People were watching it and they were getting motion. But of course, the media, it's so scary. People are throwing up. Okay. Now, rewind to The Exorcist, 1973. There are stories and news reports of people leaving the theater feeling incredibly nauseous, okay? Physically upset, psychologically disturbed. This is not hyperbole. People were leaving the theater going, I can't watch this movie. I just can't watch this movie. Now, imagine that, right? We watched The Exorcist today. I still think it's one of the greatest horror movies ever made. It's one of my favorites of all time. Top 10, maybe top 5 for me. But of course, it's 1973. So watching it in 2023, the production values are dated, the effects are dated, all that, of course, right? But the storytelling is so great, and the mood and the atmosphere and the pacing and the drama and the performances, it's fantastic, right? Still holds up today. But imagine in 1973, leaving that movie. Think of the world, right? That's the world it was in 73. That people were leaving, not everybody did, of course, right? But that there was anybody that would leave The Exorcist going, I can't fucking watch that movie. I can't fucking watch that movie, right? It might seem funny to some today, right? So think about how tame that movie is in comparison to something like Terrifier, right? So there's nothing like, so it now feels like we've got to go to Terrifier, where we're actually seeing flesh being ripped and bones being cracked and, eating this and doing this and blah, and the effects that Damien Leone has done is fantastic. They're brilliant. They're amazing. But it feels like, I still got to think of the right word, because I don't want people to put words in my mouth. It's not, I'm not saying the cheap or easy way out. I'm just saying that maybe extreme, maybe that's what it is, that we have to go to that. I guess it's just extreme. I guess it's just extreme. It's the extreme, to the absolute extreme, to be able to, make somebody walk out of a theater in 2023 going, oh my God. You know what I'm saying? And, look, Terrifier has its fans. I think the guys that made the movie, I don't know all of them, but I've spoken to Michael Levy, who's one of the producers. We've met at the 40th anniversary convention in Pasadena. We've exchanged messages before. He's got his own movie that's coming out next year called Stream, by the way, which looks really cool. Danielle Harris, a bunch of horror alum in it. But it's just not my cup of tea. I respect the hustle and I respect what they've done, of course. And I sincerely mean that 100%. But it's just not if you know me, it's not my style. It's not what I would go. But it feels like we do have to go there now to have any sort of physiological response from anybody, right? Or at least to that degree, to that extreme, right? And so it's interesting, it's interesting to watch. But I think there's, times have changed, but I will always, I wonder how long, I suspect that Damien Leone is either going to, he's got Terrifier 3. I think he said he had enough to do a Terrifier 4, but I don't think he's going to want to play in this sandbox indefinitely. I think Terrifier 2 opened quite a few doors for him. And obviously he turned down some doors in order to be able to keep it, unrated. Good for him. That's exactly what I would have done. And, but now I don't think he's going to want to, he's going to want to go off and do something mainstream, right? I know he's working with Sam Raimi's studio at the moment on some project as well, I think. So, doing Terrifier 3, how many Terrifiers does he have left in him? Or is it going to be a situation where he does Terrifier 3, gets it to a place where he feels comfortable letting it go because it's his baby. He feels comfortable letting it go, and then it's passed on to somebody else. I just, hey, like I said, it's not my cup of tea, but people love it. I mean, listen, it's on a lot of people's most anticipated horror movies lists. It's not on mine, but that's just because it's not my style of horror. But it has an audience. It has an audience, and there are a lot of people that love it. A lot of people that love it. You know what I mean? And the guys are great guys, and I wish them nothing but the best. Like it's just how some people watch It's Me, Billy, and are like, it's just not my kind of horror movie. I want more of a slasher movie and, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, and that's fair. There are some people that like the slasher movies. There are some people that like the psychological movies. There are some people that like the Terrifier kind of movies, and some people that like all three. You can absolutely do that as well, But it's fascinating how different we are now of where we were. Like, it was such a naive world. It was a far more religious world, a far more naive world 50 years ago. It didn't take that much to get people to scream now. But now, like I wish we lived in an era, like I want to see a horror movie that really gets under my skin. And it's very rare that I will see one that does. Although I do have to see When Evil Lurks or When Evil Comes or whatever that one is. I still got to see that. I hear it's fantastic. The Ritual was great. Really like that. But those are the kind of horror movies, that I'm really gravitating towards now. Hereditary and, those kinds of things. Like that's the stuff that really gets me, man. That's the stuff that really gets me. Let's see here. Okay, hang on. I just want to make sure I get the super chats. CM sends in $4.99 and says, just wanted to say Happy New Year, Dave, and to everyone in the chat. Also, I want It's Me, Billy Chapter 2 now. Damn it. Yeah, thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. Chris, of course, is one of our executive producers on It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. And again, we couldn't have done this without you, Chris. So really appreciate all of your generosity and of course, your super chat there. Thank you. And yeah, I'd love to get it out now if I could, but we gotta continue to, well, it's not done yet either. So I think people will like it. Again, I think it's important that when Chapter 2 comes out, you watch Chapter 1 first. Even if you've seen it already, you got to watch it. Don't be an idiot and watch. I'm not saying you, Chris. I just mean, no, somebody out there is going to be an idiot. Is going to only watch Chapter 2 and then review Chapter 2. And it's like, what are you doing? It's like watching the last half of Halloween and then reviewing the whole movie. Like, you can't, you know what I mean? Especially with this, like, this is it's a sequel. It's Chapter 2, but people have to remember it's really the last part of the movie. We were able to take the movie so far. We gave you Act 1 and about half of Act 2. Now we're giving you the rest of Act 2 and Act 3. And that's essentially what we're doing, right? So it's important that you have that real good idea of chapter 2 or of chapter 1 before you watch it, right? Davey Deathray sends in $5. Thanks, Davey. Says, Happy New Year, Dave. Happy New Year to you as well. The Black Christmas love seems to grow more every year. I think that will bode well for It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. I hope so. I thought more people were going to pick up the fact that we launched our teaser, but you never know with these outlets and different people. I know there was a couple of people that were interested and then they never did. So I don't know why they never did. But not that they have to. Not that they have to. They're not, they're under no allegiance to do it. But when the interest is there and then, they kind of, nothing happens, it's a little disappointing. But we've always been the little kids on the block, right? We've always been the little guys because we're not Freddie, we're not Michael, we're not Jason. And so, and of course, Olivia having backed out obviously is a big, hit really to the not only the interest but into the media, into the general interest from a media coverage perspective. If Olivia had been in that teaser trailer, and this is not a knock on Lisa Kovacs, she's fantastic. She'd be the first one to tell you this. If Olivia had been in that teaser trailer, it would have been picked up by every outlet on the planet. Well, maybe not the major trades, but certainly your Bloody Disgustings, your Colliders, all that kind of stuff. But of course, with her not there, despite the fact that we sent out the press release and despite the fact that we are delivering a professional product through and through, and Lynn's in it as well. Well, not in the teaser, but she's in the film. Again, I think maybe people feel, there might have been other stories that they wanted to run with. There was a lot of Black Christmas stories that I saw, and I was kind of like, oh, well, you could throw us in there too, and it kind of, and then some people who are maybe not knowledgeable on sort of how that all works. Somebody might want to default to, well, it's because you're a fan film, that's why they didn't. Well, that would be true. I would agree with you that is likely the case if they had never picked us up before. But Bloody Disgusting, Collider, and everybody they've Screen Rant, they have done a lot of articles on our films in the past. And there was some interest to do one this time around. As well. Now, maybe, like I said, maybe they just couldn't because they had other things that they wanted to do. But with all the Black Christmas coverage I saw, it was, I'm not going to lie, it was a little disappointing that they didn't, think, hey, this is a good piece to also throw in with that. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? And again, I could understand if we were delivering an amateur product, but when we're delivering studio quality work, I kind of feel that it's kind of newsworthy if I do. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but obviously I'm a bit biased. It's my film, but I think there's something there, especially at this time of year. It makes sense, but it's out of my hands. So hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed for when the trailer drops next year and when the actual movie comes out as well. And because it's the 50th anniversary of the film next year, the original film from 1974, and there's going to be a lot of buzz around that. Hopefully we can, ride that wave, and it would only make sense. And Lynn's going to be doing conventions and talking about it as well and posting about it on her social media as well. And maybe there'll be an opportunity maybe for Olivia to maybe share something, not really sure. We had talked about that a month or so ago when the news broke. Her manager and I had talked maybe about that potentiality because it is the 50th anniversary, and that might help us as well if she made a post, or something like that. So we'll see when that bridge crosses. But, in the world of trying to we are the little guys on the block because we don't have Freddie, Jason, or Michael. And so it's a tough sell. But I thought it was going to be an obvious sell this time of year. Like, I can understand if it was July, or June. But when it's Christmas, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little disappointed that our press release didn't get picked up because it has in the past many times. And this just felt like a no-brainer. But it didn't. But that's the realities that you face, right? There's no guarantees. It's not, I wouldn't imagine that it's personal, like, oh, we don't want to pick that up because we hate Dave McRae, although you never know. I imagine that it's just, it's the editor's choice, right? They have a lot of stuff that they want to put up this time of year, and we just kind of got pushed to the back. And that's fair, right? I mean, that's the reality, because we are still fan film, even though we're delivering a professional product. There is still a little bit of that stigma that is tough to get over. It's one thing if you are delivering an obvious fan film, but when you're delivering professional work and you still got to have, the fan film name, that is something that we still have to kind of manage and navigate through. So people, especially from those, because I've seen a lot of people who have said that they've reached out to me and they've actually said this. They've said, when I saw Black Christmas fan film, I thought, oh, and then they watched it and were like, oh, fuck. Oh, this doesn't look anything like what? This doesn't, like, there's been people that have said that to me, right? So I'm sure there's lots of people that actually, see it or hear that it's a fan film and they're like, no, I don't want to. So they don't even give it an opportunity, right? They don't even give it a chance, So it really is kind of, especially when you're dealing in a very niche area like Black Christmas. If you're Freddy or Jason, chances are are going to watch it anyway because they love Friday the 13th and they love Freddy Krueger. So even if they're apprehensive, they would probably still watch it because they're such big fans of the IP and they're such big fans of the character. But when you're Black Christmas and you're such a niche little area at the, way back of the horror, in the basement around the corner in the, in the filing cabinet, there's not enough natural general interest in the IP or in the character of Billy to make those people who go, oh, fan film, to watch anyway. Right. So, but I have had a few people who have reached out to me who've reviewed the movie as well and been like, oh, I did not expect this. This is like, this should be on like Shudder or something. Like what the hell is this? And so that's nice, validation. And I only say that because it's a lot of hard work. I mean, we've worked very hard for everybody, not just for us, but for you guys to come through on our word, to deliver something that is, that's got a good story, that looks polished, that looks pro, that sounds pro, and that can make fans proud, that can make Black Christmas fans proud, especially obviously, right? And you guys proud for donating your hard-earned money. And to being a part of this journey. And of course it's for our portfolios as well. We want to be able to show what we can do. It's killing like 900 birds with one stone. So, but we'll see, right? There's no guarantees, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not mad. I'm not upset. I was just a little disappointed because I thought it was the perfect thing to be able to pick up. Because it's like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Wow, look at this. You got Lynn Griffin in it as well, and you got this, and Lynn Griffin, is she's back, and but there was no biting. So a little disappointed, but hey, that's show business, man, and those are the breaks, and you got to keep moving forward. And like you said, Davey, with the 50th anniversary next year, that's when hopefully we'll be able to ride that wave as well. And I can tell you, I've heard from Black Christmas alum. I mean, I also know that the, what's his face now? Nick Mancusa, I believe is his name. The gentleman who was the voice of Billy in the original Black Christmas has seen It's Me, Billy Chapter 1 and loved it and said that we did Billy proud. So it's little personal things like that we get behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about that really mean the most to us. Thank goodness. Thank you, Nick, if you're watching, that we did you proud, because the last thing we would have wanted is if he was like, that's not how you do it. But it's little cool things like that. Like, well, and the brother of Roy Moore wrote the original Black Christmas. He's since passed away. His brother reached out to me about a year or so ago through Facebook, just sent me a DM. He lives overseas. I believe he's a gaming developer, if I'm not mistaken. And he reached out to me. We had a Zoom call. We talked. He loved the film. You know, it's little things like that, you know, like that's really cool. You know, Black Chris, you know, people attached to the original film coming out and saying how much they enjoy what we're doing. You know, I mean, that's wonderful validation. And Lynn as well, you know, saying this is fantastic. You know, Olivia being, you know, really into it enough to want to come on and all that. And her health, of course, it's too bad, but even that's amazing. So we'll see what 2024 brings, and we'll see what the 50th anniversary brings. But hopefully we can get a little more buzz about it. That's why, you know, I say this, and I sincerely mean this, is that it's so important that you fans, I'm not saying you got to do this ad nauseum. I just mean it's so important that fans share it wherever they can, because it's true. We are the little guys, right? And it has nothing to do with the quality of the work. It has nothing to do with the quality of the film. I mean, that's pro, but it has everything to do with the IP. We're very niche. So we need to help get that word out and spread that word and get more eyeballs onto it. And we'll see if the 50th anniversary is able to do that and maybe open some more doors. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But it's wonderful to have you guys on this ride and on this journey. It's pretty darn cool. Lee the Machine Bowers, $9.99, says, Dave, in today's world with CGI and high tech, can Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles still do puppeteering and practical effects without CGI? Probably not. You know, I mean, if you're asking if something like the 1990, you know, the original Turtle films, and I absolutely adore that first one. Even the second one's kind of fun, but probably not. No, I think it would be, and it's probably cheaper and easier to do it CGI. I mean, maybe you can do a mixture of something. I don't know. Maybe. I don't think that they would, though. They would. But that original Ninja Turtles movie from 1990, it's one I saw it in the theater when it came out. You probably did too. A lot of us did, who are in our 40s or even late 30s, or maybe even a little older, remembering that movie. It was great. Turtle power. Turtle power. Let me see here. Dream Villain says, most people are desensitized and unshockable these days unless they're easily offended. Yeah, that's true. Well, no, it's true. And now, I mean, you know, I can literally type in beheading in Google and watch an actual beheading video of somebody actually getting their head chopped off in a matter of I could probably find something in a minute, or at least a photograph in 30 seconds. I mean, that's where we are now, right? I mean, we're just so desensitized that people are just not, it's not the naive world that we lived in 50 years ago. So no, you're right. It took very little to psychologically and physiologically disturb people back then. Now it takes Terrifier. And again, please understand, I'm not knocking Terrifier. It's not my cup of tea, but there's room for everybody at the table. It's well put together. They stretched that budget like it was really well. It's made by a great bunch of people, and there's an audience for it, and it's well made. It's well put together. And Art the Clown is you know, like I said, I don't think he's a pop culture icon yet on the same levels as a Freddy and a Jason, but he's certainly he's carving a horror niche for himself, or a horror icon for himself, and who knows where he'll be, right? You know, again, that's. You know, I did a video on this over a year ago, is that to me, you know, when you are Freddy and Jason, they defined an era. And I don't know if Art the Clown has the opportunity to do that. So we may have to look at Art the Clown's iconic status may have to be measured differently than Freddy and Jason. Freddy and Jason especially defined an entire decade, defined an entire generation, defined an entire culture. That's a very different level, right? Than just being a horror icon. They surpassed the threshold of the horror genre into the pop culture zeitgeist. So that's a very, very different level. And Art the Clown, in my opinion, isn't quite at that level yet. That doesn't mean he won't be. We will see how the years judge him and where this goes and what happens with Terrifier 3 and you know, how history looks back at the Terrifier films and Art the Clown. For me, in my opinion, and again, it's backed up by things that I've measured, I wouldn't say that he's a pop culture icon. Horror icon? Sure, yeah. I mean, I you know, again, I think we're often too quick to give those titles. I mean, it's not like we were calling Freddy a horror icon in 1985. You know, I think we should kind of wait a little bit and see, will his star quickly drop off after Terrifier 3? Will Terrifier 3 be any good? Will Terrifier 3 kind of go, you know, who knows? And then his interest wanes and then there is no Terrifier 4. And then he just kind of stays where he is, right? Is he an icon? Yeah, maybe, you know, we'll see. So that's why I'm always like, I think he's on the right trajectory. I think he's on the right path for sure. But you know, we shouldn't be so loose lips to give out titles or to use sayings like greatest of all time, legendary, iconic. You know, those titles should be reserved. Those sayings and titles should be reserved for very particular instances and very particular situations that you can give examples as to why. Being popular doesn't make you an icon. Being popular doesn't make you a legend. Being popular doesn't make you the greatest of all time. There's lots of popular people. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you know, Robert De Niro is a legend. I wouldn't necessarily right now, anyway, at this moment in time, call Seth Rogen a legend. I don't think Seth Rogen's a legend. He's not a cinematic legend, right? He's not a legend, right? You know what I'm saying? He's popular. He's a celebrity, right? But he's not a legend. Right. You know what I'm saying? So we get, you know, we need to reserve those. Like we have to, I think we're too quick to hand out those titles too early in somebody's rising star. Right. And I think it's another reason why I think, although I do understand, depending on their pop culture impact and footprint, why it sometimes amazes me when I see certain people getting their Hollywood star. Now, full disclosure, I'm giving you the Cliff Notes version of this. You are not given a Hollywood star. You are given the opportunity to pay for your Hollywood star. Did you know that Al Pacino doesn't have a Hollywood star? And it's because he refuses to pay for it and pay for the upkeep of it. So the celebrity or their representatives or whoever, they pay for their Hollywood star. I forget what the cost is, but it's like $10,000 or something. Maybe it's more than that. And then you also have to pay for the upkeep. So if your star gets damaged or, you know, somebody pees on it and stains it or whatever, and you want to look pristine, you got to pay for that. As far as I know, unless the rules have changed, you are not like, it's not like you are granted a Hollywood star like people are given the key to the city. You know how some people are given the key to the city, and that's not like that. It has nothing. It's not the same thing. It's a marketing thing, you know, at the end of the day. And that's why it's kind of funny when, you know, when you walk along and you see the footprints at the Chinese theater, you know, and you see people like, you know, Harrison Ford, you know, and you see like Clark Gable, you know, and Jimmy Stewart, Humphrey Bogart. I mean, it's fucking, and then you see Twilight, you know, and you're like, you know, but then at the same time, I understand the pop culture significance of Twilight and Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson and, you know, their, you know, footprints. And it was huge between 2008 and 2012. It was huge. It was massive. It was like the Star Wars for teen girls. And it was, oh my God, it's crazy and wild. I totally get it. But it came and it went. You know, and it's like, and you kind of just look at it and you're like, Humphrey Bogart, Jimmy Stewart, Clark Gable, oh my God, look at that. Harrison Ford, Kristen Stewart's footprints. You know what I mean? So, not that she's not, you know, she's learning, she's becoming an okay actress, but it's just things like that where I don't know where I was going off on this. You know me, I go off on a tangent, but I find those things kind of funny. So that's what I was trying to say, is that I think it's important that we don't give people legendary status, iconic status too soon, because we don't know if they're going to be here and then gone, right? And because we're so saturated, it's much easier to become famous today than it was 50 years ago. I mean, Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison didn't last long either, but they're legends today because it was far harder to do what they did 50 years ago. And there wasn't as many of them. But today, I mean, you can fart in a glass and sell it on TikTok and you're famous, and it's like, it's just, you know what I mean? And that's why, I mean, Britney Spears had her star on the Walk of Fame before Spielberg did, I think, or the same week or something like that. It's like, how did Britney Spears, who rose to fame in 1998, get her star on the Walk of Fame in 2003? Okay. And Spielberg got his the same year, and Harrison Ford got his the same year. Look it up. It's like something's, now is Britney Spears a legend? Sure. But I don't know if I would have given that star to her then. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, and even, what's his face? Oh God, he has there's a lot of people that get their stars, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, but then you have to kind of look at, well, is it really them getting their stars? Like, did Macaulay Culkin, I know Macaulay Culkin recently got his star on the Walk of Fame, right? Well, Macaulay Culkin hasn't had a fucking, I mean, I know he's done B-movie indie shit, but he hasn't had a real career, since he was 12, right? So is he a legendary child star? Sure. Home Alone 2, The Good Son. Sure. But does Elijah Wood have his star? Does Elijah Wood have his star? I'm not really sure. If he does, then great. But you know what I'm trying to say, right? It's all marketing. It's all, anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I think we need to be careful when we put out the legendary status. Legendary and iconic should be reserved, in my opinion, for when somebody has enough history to show that they have enough staying power, to show that they have enough staying power at the top, to show that they have enough pop culture, not within their own genre, but pop culture influence beyond the threshold of whatever it is. I mean, Elvis Presley superseded music, right? And I don't just mean because he was in movies. I just mean that he was, you know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of bands and artists that are like that, their names alone, right? And what they've done. So anyways, I'll get off my soapbox, but it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Nathaniel Fincher says, Dave has a tendency to strawman stuff and tear it down, to be fair. I have a tendency to strawman. Well, you'll have to give me an example, because without being able to know specifically on what you're talking, that's a blanket statement, right? So when you say that I straw man things, I know what you're talking about. When you say I straw man things, that's a blanket statement. So you have to give me specific examples of what you think I am straw manning, and then I can counter that. I disagree with you. I think I'm very fair with my assessments in what in my approach. So I think and I think the examples that I give are related to the larger example of what I'm trying to paint, right? So I do think it's important that these are the nuances and the details that I like to look at things from, rather than making blanket statements like such and such is iconic. Now, again, I mean, if he's iconic to you, great. But I like to be able to measure things and to be able to have things like, when somebody says Art the Clown is iconic, I disagree, because I think there's nuance there. Is he iconic? Is he popular right now? Sure. Is he the new hip guy on the street? Absolutely. Is he carving himself a path for potentially to become iconic? Absolutely. But I don't think he's reached legendary Freddy Krueger status quite yet, right? And I don't think I've strawmanned anything there. And I've given examples as to why. Now, please understand too, that often I will go off on, sort of this, my tangents, right? As I like to call them, and start talking about other examples that make me think of things. But I always bring it home, right? I always bring it home because something will make me think of something. Like, oh, that's a good example of that too. And I'll start talking about that. And that, to your point, isn't necessarily directly related to the source of what I was talking about, right? And if I was deliberately trying to straw man, then that is, you are right, that would be what I would, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm just circling around and giving other examples of what I'm talking about and then bringing it home to the source, right? Bringing it back to the source. And I think that's a very important distinction to be able to make. But if you can give me a specific example, I'll be happy to address it for you. Okay, have I got all the super chats? I believe I have. Let me just go back here and make sure that I have. Yes, I believe. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I just want to make sure. All right, let me see what you guys are saying. Let me see here. Aaron Click says the Twilight franchise is having a resurgence in popularity. Not that negates what you're saying, Dave. No, it's true. It's true. No, it is. You're absolutely right. And that's why I said I can understand, right? Like I can understand why that's there. It just feels to me, and I speak only for myself when I say this, although others may agree, having your footprints, right, and your handprints embedded in cement in front of arguably the most famous movie theater in the world, right on Hollywood Boulevard, should be, in my opinion, and Hollywood stars, right, should be reserved only for those that truly reach legendary pinnacle status. And maybe it's because I wasn't a 12-year-old girl and I'm not a 44-year-old woman that I didn't, that I feel that way about it. For me, I'm not quite sure that, because there's lots of things that are popular. There's many, many things that are popular that could that you might be able to say, hey, might deserve footprints and their name over Twilight. Right? You know what I'm saying? That aren't there right now. There's many actors that may have deserved their Hollywood star over Macaulay Culkin, right? Look at Al Pacino, right? But he turned it, and Al Pacino turned it down specifically because it's just marketing. And again, I know that might seem a bit of a downer for some who really think that's pretty cool. But you are not given a Hollywood star like you are the key to a city. You have to pay for it. You are asked if you want one. They want to give you one, and then you pay for it, and you pay for the upkeep of it. And that's great. And that's why there are some people that get hot and get a string of hotness for like a year or two, and all of a sudden they have a star on the Walk of Fame, and you're like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think it should be reserved for people that have maybe it's like a Hall of Fame, right? And people don't get inducted into the Hall of Fame while they're still playing, right? Nobody gets inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, the Football Hall of Fame, the Hockey Hall of Fame, the Basketball Hall of Fame, as far as I know, while they're still playing, right? Some might, maybe. But I look at the footprints and the handprints and the stars, even though it's not a Hall of Fame. I look at that as sort of, it's that kind of thing. And although Robert De Niro is still acting and Harrison Ford is still acting, I get that. But it was after a certain period of time, right? It was after, 25 or 30 years when they were finally given that opportunity. And I just feel that, I don't know. There's some people I'm like, oh, wait, because this might just be a little bit of a hot run. We might want to wait on this, right? That's how I feel about it anyway. That's how I feel. And you're free to disagree. You're free to disagree. You're free to disagree. I'm not seeing anybody talking about the, Nathaniel, if you're still in here, let me know. Let me know what I'm straw manning, because I take it seriously and I want to be able to address it. So again, if you can give me a specific example, unless you're talking about me going off on my, discussions about all sorts of things relating to what I'm talking about, right? It is related. So keep that in mind, right? So, But if there's something specific you want me to address, feel free to. You put it in the chat room, man. You said it. You got to own up to it now. So give me a specific example and we can talk. Lee the Machine Bowers sends in $19.99. Thank you, Lee. Appreciate that. Says, for the channel, Happy New Year's, Dave and Veda. Yes, Veda is around here somewhere. Gotta head out. Have a good night. Much love. Thank you, Lee. Really appreciate that. And thank you for the generous opportunity, the generous super chats, I should say. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate that. Nighttime says he's bluffing, Dave. No, not necessarily, because I think what Nathaniel was saying was, when I started talking about Art the Clown, and I started talking about the examples of why I think he's, and then I start going off and talking about other things unrelated directly to Art the Clown, right? Now I'm no longer talking about Art the Clown. I'm talking about the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I'm talking about, the footprints and the Chinese theater and all that. But it's because I'm now stemming off and talking about other examples of things that I don't think are, quite iconic yet. And, I'm giving examples of the overall arching theme of what I'm talking about with Art the Clown and, being iconic and all that kind of stuff. Right. So it's not like I'm drawing a conclusion that has nothing to do with it. A straw man argument to that would be if I was talking about that and then I started talking about something that had nothing to do with iconic status. Like now I'm talking about something else completely different where I'm now trying to draw a conclusion to, right? Well, hang on a sec here. One thing at a time. That's a straw man argument, Dave. I thought we were talking about iconic status and what makes somebody iconic and what makes something iconic and how long should somebody wait to be iconic. And, and now you're talking about, something to do with something completely unrelated. Like why are you jumping ship and now you're trying to say it's related to that doesn't make any sense. That would be more in line with what I think Nathaniel is saying. But if you pay attention to what I'm saying, and sometimes, like I said, I go off my little things, I'm just giving other examples, trying to broaden my point, right? I'm giving other examples to broaden my point, and then I bring it back down to Art the Clown. So again, Art the Clown, in my opinion, hasn't reached iconic status yet in terms of a pop culture way, because I think it's still too early for art. But he's definitely carving a really popular path within the horror genre for sure. And he's knocking on that pop culture door, right? When you got Jimmy Fallon and Howard Stern talking about Terrifier 2, that's knocking on the pop culture door, right? Now it's like, oh, he's it's like when, Kane, I think it was Kane Hodder, maybe it wasn't, but it was like when Jason came out onto the set of the Arsenio Hall show, right? When you're coming out onto the set of a late night talk show, or you've got yourself now you're starting to, you know what I mean? And we'll see if that happens with art. We'll see if it happens. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I just think it's a little early yet, in my opinion. And I was trying to give some other examples of how I think, we prematurely put that label on things. That's why I went off on that thing. I wasn't straw manning anything. Rob Thidoff says, Dave, Happy New Year. Will you and Bruce use the missing persons posters as promotional tools to promote IMDb 2? I think that would be awesome. I would have zero to inflate my ego even. It would have a zero to inflate my ego even more. You know what? That's not a bad idea. We haven't thought about that. But that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. Maybe I will, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that. That's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. Maybe we will do that. I kind of like that idea. Aaron Click says the door might even be cracked open a little with art right added. Absolutely. Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. And again, guys, I always try to come at my arguments and my positions from a place of being informed and a place of stuff that I can present. You don't have to agree with me, but stuff that I can present to you that's measurable, that's quantifiable, right? Because then it's not just my opinion, right? Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with just having an opinion, but it actually has some substance to it. Now, some arguments will have more substance than others, but now there's actually some weight here, and it gives you something, to think about, right? Like, oh yeah, that's true. Like, maybe he's not quite there, but maybe he will get there. And it's just how I look at things. If you want to say that Art the Clown is a horror or is an icon of pop culture right now, knock yourself out. But I disagree. I think there's a little more pop culturing that art has to do. For example, I could take, now again, I don't have any actual numbers on this, but it's an informed guess that I could probably take 3 photos. And I could take Art the Clown, I could take a photo of Freddy Krueger, and I could take a photo of Jason Voorhees, and I could go into Times Square, and I could show random people in Times Square from all around the world, those 3 people. And the chances of Art the Clown being recognized as much or even the most is highly unlikely. Now, that doesn't mean there's not going to be people going, oh, that's Art the Clown. But there probably is going to be some people going, Pennywise, or not sure, oh, he looks familiar, not sure who that is. But chances are there's going to be most everybody will go, oh, well, that's Jason. Oh, well, that's Freddy Krueger, right? I mean, a picture of Robert Englund like this, they're going to be like, that's Freddy Krueger, right? Art the Clown, you're definitely going to get people that are going to recognize him for sure. But I don't think, and again, I have no stats on this yet because I haven't done it, but I'm confident in saying that I don't think it would be anywhere near how recognizable Freddy and Jason are. Now, why is that? Well, it's because Jason and Freddy have been around for over 40 years, right? Or for 40 years. And so, there's that longevity, there's that history, right? And they've reached that pop culture. They've been in the pop culture zeitgeist way longer, right? So that's what I mean by that, right? That's all I'm saying. And that's why I say I think it's important that we should look at history. We should wait a while to look at how history treats art. But because art's coming up in a different era as well, we may have to measure art a bit differently. I think for me, it's still a little too soon to figure out what that is, because it's really only Terrifier 2 that's really had him explode. I mean, he was known a little bit with Terrifier 1, but it's Terrifier 2 because of the theatrical release and because of how well it did. It's Terrifier 2 that's really sprung him to a new level. So he just got to that level. So I think we need to kind of see how Terrifier 3 does. Hope it's a good movie. Hope it continues to propel art forward. And then we'll see how history begins to treat art and where he ends up and what sort of, pop culture sort of area he ends up in. And that's why I was using the example of, the Hollywood stars. And I think we should wait until people, have more longevity in their careers. And that's what I mean, right? I'm using these other examples to kind of paint a picture of what I'm talking about. Because I don't like to throw around the term legendary and iconic because it's thrown around so loosely nowadays. It's so, it's legendary. It's goat. And it's like, I don't know, but that's me. Flixsymmetry says, and 70% and 75% of the people will say Michael Myers is Jason. 100%. No, but you're bang on. You're bang on, buddy. And that's another example because Michael, you've heard me say this many times, Michael was largely removed from the pop culture in the 1980s. He wasn't non-existent, but he was there in 1981 and then 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87. That's 6 years where there's nothing. And there was a Halloween movie in 82 with no Michael. I know he's on the television, but you know what I mean. And so there's nothing. And during that time, Freddy and Jason were tearing it up. And that's why you will still to this day, and certainly in the 80s and in the 90s, when you dressed up as Michael Myers, all the parents that all the doors that you went to and said, trick or treat, oh, you're Jason. It's because they were there. It really wasn't until Halloween H2O, really, sincerely, I'm not saying Michael wasn't a thing and he wasn't big. I'm just saying it really wasn't until H2O that put Michael into a new level, because there was a horror surgence in the late 90s, thanks to Scream. And there was the capitalization on that horror surgence. And that's why, for a lot of you watching right now, Halloween H2O was either the first Halloween movie you ever saw or the first Halloween movie you saw in a movie theater. And I guarantee you there's a lot of people watching right now that go, yep, that's true. Now, maybe you're a bit younger than me, I'm not sure, but that's why, is because there was this horror resurgence in the late 90s. Halloween was a part of it, and it made you go back and watch the others, where guys like me were watching the others. I mean, when I started watching Halloween, there were only 3 Halloween movies, 1, 2, and 3, right? And so when H2O came along, I was a veteran, even though I was only, 19. But so, yeah, that's it, right? I mean, that's why there's this, that he's right. I mean, you're right. That's why it wasn't really till H2O that it took Michael to a new level. I'm not saying Michael wasn't big. I'm not saying he wasn't recognizable. I'm just saying that H2O, because it was such a pop culture thing, H2O just reignited Michael again. And then it's been Michael ever since. There hasn't been any Jason except for the 2009 remake. There hasn't been any Freddy except for the 2010 remake, right? So I know there was Jason X in 2001. I know there was Freddy versus Jason 2003, but I'm just saying that really hasn't, it's been Michael. Michael's had this clear runway with really no competition from the other big two, really. And so he's had this real runway, which is why I've often said, I wonder how big Michael would be today. He'd still be big. If there was resistance. If Jason was firing on all cylinders and there was these great Friday the 13th movies, and Freddy was firing on all cylinders and there was these great theatrically released, Elm Street movies. But there's been none of that. And so Michael's this lone wolf, just, whether the movies are good or not, Resurrection, Rob Zombies 1, Rob Zombies 2, Halloween 18, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends. He's just had this runway with nothing, with very little resistance. So, but yeah, no, you're right. So that's how I like to think of things. It's not straw manning anything. It's painting a picture. I give an argument and then I go off and I give other examples of what I'm talking about, right? It's connected. It's connected. It would only be straw man if I hadn't done that. If I hadn't done that. Devontae Huntley behaving himself in the chat room. And he's right. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Oh, no. He had been around for a while, right? You got All Hallows Eve. Absolutely. But I'm talking about, it wasn't until, again, this is where the nuance comes in. Terrifier 2 is what put Art on the map to the level where he is now. Now your grandma knows who Art the Clown is, right? Now your girlfriend who knows who Art the Clown is. Now Howard Stern knows who Art the Clown is. Before Terrifier 2, if you had said Art the Clown to Howard Stern, you have no idea the fuck you're talking about, right? So yes, Art the Clown was around, to your point, in independent, films, absolutely. But it was more, but Friday the 13th was an independent film. A Nightmare on Elm Street was an independent film, but they were independent films with a bit of money that had major theatrical releases. So that's the difference there, right? But absolutely. So that's why I say, for me, and I only speak for me, that, again, if you feel differently, that's fair. But for me, I like to wait. How will history, I like to wait. I don't like to pull out the icon card so soon, just because something's hot and popular, right? But that's me. And that's not me tearing down Art the Clown. That's not me saying that the movies are, that's not me saying that at all. I don't think the movies are garbage at all. Nowhere close to that. That's not me saying that. That's me being me. And I would do the same thing with Michael. I would do the same thing with Freddy. I would do the same thing with anything, right? That's me just being me. You know what I mean? Because I want to, I don't want to jump the gun too soon. And you know what I mean? That's how it works. Aaron Click says, I wonder how much quicker Michael would have gotten to the level of Jason Freddy if there had been a third Michael movie a year or two after Halloween. Yeah, it's hard to say, right? Because you have Michael and Jason would still be there, right? So it's interesting to see. Michael really has had no competition. So it would have been because when Halloween came out in 1978, there was no Jason, there was no Freddy. When when Elm Street came out, there was no Michael, but there was Jason, and those guys went head to head. If Michael had been around, I don't know. I sometimes wonder. I think Halloween has become extraordinarily popular, and Halloween is also, there's a lot of rabid fans out there, a lot of great fans, a lot of frustrating and annoying fans. And I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm just saying, in a general sense, if you're offended by that, then maybe you're the one I'm talking about. And I couldn't care less. But anyway, but Halloween's never really had any resistance, right? Because when Halloween 4 came out, Freddy and Jason were on their downward trajectory. I mean, the slasher subgenre was on its downward trajectory. And Freddy and Jason were really in sort of the waning years of their franchises when Halloween 4 came out. Halloween 4 comes out, hey, not bad, right? And then Halloween 5. And then Halloween 6, right? So, I mean, there's really been and there were 6 years. I mean, there was 6 years between Halloween 5 and Halloween 6. And there was, 6 years between Halloween 2 and Halloween 4. I mean, Michael, he wasn't around much, He wasn't around much in the 80s, and he wasn't around much in the early 90s. So it's and then H2O, right? But there's no, there's no Michael, there's no Freddy. There's no Freddy, there's no Jason. So I'd be very curious, all things even, I'd be very curious to see where Michael is today. If there was that box office resistance, or they might have all lifted each other up. I don't know, right? But it worked for Freddy and Jason. But how you know what they say: two's company, three's a crowd. And so even though Three's Company is my favorite, one of my favorite sitcoms, the saying is two's company, three's a crowd. And so Freddy and Jason in the 80s played off each other very well. Right? But you throw Michael into the mix and he's banging out movies in 84, 85, 86. I don't know. It might have not bode well for Michael. It might have not bode well for one of the others. Who knows, right? It would have been very interesting to see where that goes. But yeah, listen, Art the Clown, he's got his fans, and again, not my kind of horror movie, but I respect the hustle. I respect what they've done, sincerely, and they're taking it up a notch, and I'm looking forward to seeing Terrifier 3. I'm going to watch it for sure. I saw 1, I saw 2. I will watch 3 and see where they go, and I wish them the best of luck, sincerely. But maybe this is the movie that's going to do it. You never know. You never know. We'll see what happens. Chester Franklin Jr. says, Dave, I always enjoy Halloween 3 a lot, despite Myers not being in it. Photography and score. Also missed you. Super chat from AK. I missed a super chat from AK Channel TV. Thank you. Let me go back and get that. There it is. AK Channel TV, $4.99. Thank you. It says, long time, Dave. It has been a long time. Good to see you're enjoying filming. What has been your favorite part of filming It's Me Billy 2 in comparison to part 1? Happy New Year. Thank you. You know what? I think I need to be a little farther removed. So much, I think one of the things, I'll just say this, in comparison, I don't know, because like I said on previous streams, this was, it was a tougher shoot, a lot of logistics firing on all cylinders. It was just tougher. And because, it's a full scale union shoot. It's a short film, of course, in one location, but it's a full scale shoot, unionized shoot. So there's a lot of turning wheels and a lot of, but it was great experience. And it just gets me excited for the next one. But I will say, I think what I enjoyed most, and it was the same on this, is just the people that I worked with. And the crew and the cast, because we're shooting in one location, although our final day of shooting Chapter 2 is on the 13th of January at a studio, the main block shooting at the house, which is where we shoot, most of the movie, because we're all at this one location, some of us are staying at the house, others are at a hotel down the street. there's this real sort of summer camp vibe. And it just felt, and again, not every movie is like that, right? There's unit moves. We didn't have that. So we didn't have to like arrive at 7 a.m. We did, but spend 2 hours or 3 hours setting up, and then also have to factor in that we have 2 to 3 hours to tear everything down at the end of the day because we're moving locations. We didn't have to do that with chapter 1 or 2 because the whole movie takes place in one location. So we could leave dolly track set up, we could leave, the jib in the corner. We could leave, the Pee-wee dolly over there. We could leave the camera on the Pee-wee dolly and, all that kind of stuff because we're coming back to it 12 hours later. And we just put it in the corner, put a tarp over it. Everything's good. It's sealed off. It's protected. And so that saved us a lot of time and a lot of energy and allowed us to really then bond with the crew and the cast because there wasn't all this time spent every day tearing down. So shooting at one location, there was this real sort of summer camp kind of vibe, and it was just so much fun. And I know, listen, I'm not naive. I know that on future films, that's not necessarily going to be the case. The larger films you do, the more broad the story is, the more locations you have, the more crew, the bigger the production, you don't necessarily get that. You don't necessarily get that summer camp cozy vibe on large scale blockbusters, for example. Not that I'm ever going to be in a position to direct a blockbuster, but I just mean like on bigger films. On the low budget indie films, which is what It's Me Billy is, it's what Halloween was, right? Like you'll often hear when you watch documentaries on the original Halloween, I don't know if they actually use the term summer camp, but you hear Jamie Lee Curtis, Nick Castle, like you hear a lot of them talk about how it was this close, tight-knit group of people. We were all pitching in, helping, and we were all like, it was this nice little community, right? We were all young and we were doing this kind of, even though we're like, a lot older than they were. But, and I think you really do get that on true independent films, right? Professional films, but independent, and which just simply means away from, the studios, right? They're not studio backed or studio produced. And so It's Me Billy chapter 1 and 2 had that. And it was my first experience making a real film, as you know. And so to have that be my first experience and not be jaded, by something larger or something more logistically complicated, I think helps. For sure. I think it was a wonderful experience, these two movies, in that regard. So to answer your question, that's what I take from that. I think I'm sure there's like, if you're asking about scenes and things like that, I can get into that. I can't get into that really with chapter 2 because that would get into spoiler territory. But I love shooting the porch scene in chapter 1 between Emma and Sam. I love the dining room scene. I think it's one of my favorite scenes in that film when we had the camera on some, on a jib on some track, and we're pushing in towards Sam. Just that shot as she begins to tell the story, just using the cinematic language and crafting those shots. And I mean, there's so much, and it was just a great experience. But it was a great experience on 1 and 2 because I think of the logistical nature of the practicality of the shoot itself. I don't know if we would have gotten that same close-knit family, hey, we're all family, hey, vibe. Not that we didn't work hard and there wasn't, stress. There was, but I don't know if we would have had that on a larger shoot where we're unit moving all the time. We're shooting 3 days here, 4 days here, and then we're going over here to the studio, and then we're going over here, and then we're flying over. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if we would have had that necessarily, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't done that yet, so we'll see. We'll see. But I would say that, I do consider everybody that worked on the film, I consider them friends, I consider them family. It was just a very nice, close-knit thing. But those are some of my favorite scenes to shoot. The porch scene on chapter 1, the dining room scene on chapter 1. What else? I mean, it's just, it was just, it was a great experience. On chapter 2, there's some things that I like to shoot, but I can't tell you what that is because that would be spoiler territory. Thank you for the super chat, AK Channel TV. Appreciate it. Kiss my flapjack. Hey, buddy, what's going on? Sends in $5. Thank you. And says, Happy New Year. I missed the Michael Myers poster in the background of the former setup. No, it's there. It's there. It's up over here. I'll have to put it down here maybe. But it's up on the wall over there. But yeah, I know what you mean. Framed so perfectly, like he was coming down the stairs at you. Ooh, maybe I'll have to, I keep reaching for that bottle of water and there's nothing there. Maybe I'll have to do that. Maybe I'll have to do that. Not really sure. Not really sure. All right, let me see. Here we go. Nathaniel Fincher said, Kristen Stewart and Patterson, it's Pattinson, by the way, turned out to be fantastic actors. I agree. So thank you for clarifying. I'm assuming this is where you're accusing me of strawmanning. So my argument about Kristen Stewart, and I even said that she's become actually a pretty decent actress now. And Pattinson's fantastic. I didn't say anything about him. What I said is it in relation to Twilight, right? And so the Twilight saga, but I also said I do recognize that it was like huge between the years of like 2008 and 2012. If you were like a teen girl, the books and the movie, it was huge. It was absolutely huge. But I don't know if I would have given Twilight their own, and Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson in relation to their roles in Twilight. Because remember, they weren't given that just last week. They were given those footprints and handprints back then, like back in 2012 or 13 or, whatever, or maybe even before. So they were being given this incredible honor of their footprints and handprints cemented in front of the world's most famous movie theater, amongst the likes of Harrison Ford, Clark Gable, Humphrey Bogart, and, whoever, right? True Hollywood icons and legends of the silver screen. They were given this honor not because they're great actors now, but because of the pop culture footprint and the pop culture craziness of Twilight. And so, remember, Harrison Ford was in Star Wars. Mark Hamill was in Star Wars, right? And Harrison Ford didn't get his footprints and handprints in front of the Chinese theater until 1992. He didn't get his star on the Walk of Fame until 2003. Mark Hamill just got his star on the Walk of Fame, right? And I don't know if Mark Hamill has his footprints or handprints in front of the Chinese theater. I'm not sure. I know R2-D2 and C-3PO and Darth Vader, I think, did way back then. But that's the point I'm making, right? Is that I agree with you. Pattinson's a terrific actor. And Stewart is I don't know if she's quite as good as Pattinson, but she's certainly becoming her own. But that's not why they were given that that opportunity. That's not why their footprints and handprints are there, right? They're there because Twilight was just this mega huge thing. And so that's what I mean. So that's what I'm talking about. I wasn't strawmanning anything. I was just, again, drawing that, are we giving these things to certain people and certain things too soon? Are we putting these labels on people too soon, right? And that's what I'm talking about. Now, Robert Pattinson, right? I don't think he has his star on the Walk of Fame yet, but he's carving, if he begins to move into more mainstream, which is what the Batman sort of helped him do. He's done a lot of indie films. And maybe he'll always stay there, who knows? But if Kristen Stewart and Pattinson, and they're still very young, if they continue to carve out a path for them in the future and they start becoming like real notable, wow, what terrific actors, then I think that's when you approach the conversation about a star or, what have you, right? But I think when something is popular and hot and spikes really fast, in my opinion, I think at certain times, the industry is too quick to bestow them or give them, they have to pay for it, but allow them to have the opportunity to have something that I feel should be reserved when you've proven longevity. That's me. And so that was the connection I was making. I wasn't implying that Pattinson, nor did I even say that Pattinson and Stewart were not good actors. I never said that. So hopefully that clarifies that for you, Nathaniel. Let me see here. Okay, have I got all the super chats? I just want to make sure I've got them all. Kiss My Flapjack, I think, was the last one as far as I know, but I just want to make sure I've got them all. I just want to make sure. Okay. Oliver Mercer, he's talking to Jay Beach. What's going on, Oliver? Good to see you. Flick Symmetry says, let's face it, right now those stars are being crapped on. Yeah, Hollywood Boulevard is, if you've ever been there, it's, well, there's certain areas, right? Right between Hollywood and Highland, like right in front of the Roosevelt Hotel, the Chinese theater. Is the Chinese theater or Man's Theater? I think it's the Chinese theater again. There's certain sections that are really cool and really nice. But then there's certain sections you go down certain streets and it's like, listen, Los Angeles and Hollywood is not, obviously there's Skid Row, downtown LA, which is just, we don't want to get into that. But there's a lot of, it's not as glitzy and as glamorous as you would, because that's where all the tourists go, right? Excuse me. It's like Times Square. The people that actually live in New York very rarely go to Times Square unless they have to. Like all those people you see in Times Square, they don't live in New York. They're tourists from all over the world. Same with, Hollywood Boulevard. The only time that the stars will go to Hollywood Boulevard is if they're attending the Academy Awards, because the Academy Awards are held at the, is it called the Kodak Theater or the DG something theater, whatever it is there? Or a premiere or something like that at one of the theaters there. It could be that too. All right. Let me see here. What time is all right. We'll go a little bit longer. Last stream of 2023. Last stream of 2023. Thomas Cohn says, Frank, don't be dressing up like a box of Kleenex because of that comment. Oh, I love when you guys are just, I have no idea what you're talking about, but Guitarist Dog 87 says, Dave, were you a Tom Green fan back in the day? I would not say that I was a Tom Green fan, but I would say that I knew who Tom Green was. Tom Green is from Ottawa. I think he lives back there now. Tom Green is a bit older than me. I think how old is Tom Green? I'm 45 next year. Tom Green. Is he 50 something? Tom Green is 52. Okay, so he's born in 71. So he's 10, 9. So he's 8 years older than me. So in the 90s, Tom Green had a local cable access television show on Rogers Cable. And the local Ottawa community station. All volunteer. I don't think Tom Green was paid, but he had a talk show, and it was like a late night show, whatever. My dad was on it. My dad went on it at least once, I think. And I remember myself and Bruce. I don't know if he would remember this, but he would. I don't know if he would, but I remember. Now we're a bit younger, so I was probably like 15 or 16. So Tom Green would have been like 24 or 23 or whatever. And I remember Bruce and I had put together a package and pitched it to Rogers Cable Television to do our own talk show to go up against Tom Green. Now, we were younger, but we were going to do our own talk show, and it was great. My dad even really thought it was really good. But the head of Rogers Cable at that time, which was not the head of Rogers Cable in general, but the head of the community station, I think they didn't want to bring us on because it was something like there was some other show that was similar to what we were doing. It was like we were doing like a talk show, but we were doing it was like a sketch kind of show or whatever, and it was gonna be us, and it was gonna be a lot of fun. It was based on a show that we had done ourselves in our backyard, and it was perfect. It was perfect. And it was totally legit. Like, we weren't farting around. We had my dad involved in helping us to put the package together and all that kind of stuff. But the head of Rogers, the head of the community station, didn't, there was some movement, and they were going to put us sort of like either on or before Tom Green or something like that. But it never came to fruition, unfortunately. So, but I remember Tom Green very well, and I've never met him, never spoken to him, but I do remember him. And you know, I can't say that I'm a huge fan of his comedy, and it's really not my style. Not that he hasn't done some funny things. He's definitely done some funny things. And of course, he went off and came to Toronto and had a talk show here, and then went to MTV in the States, and then started dating Drew Barrymore and you know, and all that. And then of course he did Freddie Got Fingered, which fucking just awful. And then, you know, his career kind of, you know, because I don't think that was sustainable. You know, I think, I mean, you know, Tom Green, his style of comedy, his sort of what he was doing, the gross out comedy, the extreme comedy. Listen, it had its audience then. It has its audience now. But I don't think it's big enough. It's not populous enough. It's very niche to be able to have longevity in that. You will always remain where he remained, which was niche, sort of on the peripheral, on the outskirts, you know, a bit of a rebel, kind of like, you know, he's not mainstream. He's kind of on the outskirts, right? Because that kind of comedy doesn't have that broad appeal. And so I'm not surprised that, you know, he didn't become bigger than he was. He had his moment. He had his little touch of Hollywood there, you know, in the late 90s, early 2000s. He was in Road Trip, of course, and then his own movie, as I said, you know, Freddie Got Fingered, was married to Drew Barrymore for a year. But I'm not surprised that it didn't last beyond that because it's very sort of, you know, his style, I don't think, you know, set himself up for any sort of real longevity. But yeah, no, I remember Tom Green very well. And he would, I mean, he wouldn't know who I was, but he would certainly know who my dad was for sure. So yeah. Flick Symmetry says Tom Green, Pauly Shore, Richard Greco, etc. Need I say more? Yeah, Pauly Shore. Well, Pauly Shore had a shtick. Pauly Shore wasn't really. I mean, he just his shtick. Well, I guess I see what you're saying. Yeah, you're drawing the parallels. Yeah, different kinds of humor, of course. Pauly Shore was far more successful mainstream than Tom Green ever was, but Pauly Shore had a shtick, right? It was that, you know, naive, nerdy kind of, well, man, you know, he had that. And then he got to an age where that just didn't really fly anymore. But he had his, you know, a few big hits in the early to mid 90s. And, but yeah, there's only so much, as you age and as you get older, there's only so much that you can do. It's like, I'll never forget what Rowan Atkinson said about Mr. Bean. Although if Rowan Atkinson, you know, he looks good for his age. I love Mr. Bean. I think he's just great. But this is a few years, I don't know how old Rowan Atkinson is now. He's got to be in his 60s. But a few years ago, he was asked if he would do another Mr. Bean movie or, you know, another show or something. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, probably not. Like, I mean, because, you know, when I'm younger, like when I first started doing Bean, I was in my 30s, you know, and so, you know, and Bean is that simpleton kind of, you know, guy, naive, dumb shit luck. And but he's that, you know, kind of guy. Right. And, really funny, you know, but when you're in your 30s, you can do that and people laugh at you and with you in a positive way. When you're old and you look old and you're behaving like Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson said, like, you run the risk of looking kind of sad because people feel sorry for you because you look like a, you know, like a not all there old man now. Do you know what I mean? So it's not necessarily, it doesn't have quite the same punch that it had when you were 35 as opposed to knocking on 70. And there's truth into what he's saying. Now that doesn't, I mean, he looks good for his age. That doesn't mean that if he wasn't to do a Mr. Bean special now or whatever, he could get away with it. I'm sure he could get away with it. But the principle of what he's talking about, I absolutely agree with. It's like Jim Carrey, right? You know, he looks good for his age, but he's got to be knocking on 60 if he's not already. And, you know, it's that thing where, because he was so animated and so rubbery and all this kind of stuff, well, that's okay when you're in your 20s and 30s and even 40s. But once you start getting all the wrinkles and you start looking like an older man, doing that it's like, I even found Dumb and Dumber 2, and that came out in 2014. I found that movie, I know some people, it's like, oh, it's terrible. It was nowhere near as good as the first one. I agree. It wasn't as good as the first one, but it was still funny. I mean, it's as good as it probably could have been because of how iconic the first one was. But Jim Carrey, it was funny watching him do these grotesque sort of, things and the humor and whatnot. Maybe it's just because I'm older now too. I laugh, but I almost felt more uncomfortable watching him in his late 50s or however old he was at the time, rather than seeing him in his 30s. There's a strangeness to for certain comedians, right? For certain comedians, that age really can hinder, you in a lot of ways. And, seeing like Tom Green, right? His whole shtick was the gross out humor, and seeing Tom Green in his 20s, seeing him in his 50s, closing on 60, I don't know. It's not as funny anymore. You know what I mean? Anyways, that's how I feel about it. But yeah. All right. You know what? We'll take this thing another 10 minutes. We'll go 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. Take it another 10 minutes, and then we'll call it a day. Alex Shambach says, Dave, what would you say is the current trend in horror films today that is soon to seem dated? I believe the shticky comedy horrors like Freaky will be defined as very much of their time. That's not a bad one. I would say that, yeah, and I would say that Happy Death Day really is what started it. And then you have Freaky. And then, of course, It's a Wonderful Knife, which I've yet to see, but apparently it plays off of the same kind of thing. I think we're just getting started. I don't know how long that kind of horror movie is going to last, but I feel like we're just getting started with it. Like it hasn't been around that long. What horror trends today? What horror trends? That definitely I can see being one. I'm trying to think of another. There's the found footage stuff, but found footage I don't think ever really truly got its footing, no pun intended. I think there's still so much stuff that could be explored. Unfortunately, because there's been so many lackluster, bad, found footage, cheap movies, people hear the word found footage and they roll their eyes. And it's unfortunate because I do think there's a lot of, there's untapped potential in the found footage subgenre that has yet to be explored. And it's because it became very tunnel vision, which is unfortunate. With movies like Thanksgiving, could you see a resurgence in the slasher subgenre? I don't know. Maybe. I doubt it, though. I don't think Thanksgiving was big enough for that. Thanksgiving would have had to have been ginormous, huge, like a pop culture juggernaut, like a Get Out or something like that, which wasn't a slasher movie. But I just mean in terms of that big thing, Thanksgiving or like a Scream back in the 90s, it would have had to have been huge to see some sort of all of a sudden, now we're going to open this door to this resurgence of slashers. I don't think we're going to see that. I think slashers will still remain into sort of the B movie, straight to streaming stuff, generally speaking. You got Art the Clown, of course, and Terrifier 3, but that's more than a slasher movie. That's sort of a slasher / splatter movie. It's got a couple of subgenres within it. You know what I quite like, which I wouldn't mind seeing, and I don't know what subgenre this would go into. I have to see maybe that's what I'll watch tonight. I have to see the sequel to Missing. So that movie that came out like 4 years ago called Missing, and it was all done from it's like Host or Unfriended. It's all done through the computer and all that kind of stuff. And I think, although there's been some poor examples of that, I think Unfriended and Host and Missing are really great examples of that style. And I saw Missing in the theater, and I loved it. And I know Searching? Is that the sequel? Is Searching the sequel, or is Missing the sequel? Searching, that's it. Aaron Click, Searching. Thank you. Missing's the sequel, right? Missing is the sequel, I think. Yeah, Searching Searching. That's right, Searching. I really liked that a lot. And then I think there was a sequel last year called Missing, and I've yet to watch that. I wouldn't mind seeing more in that vein, but with higher production value, like Searching, Missing, not quite like Host, although those can be fun too. But those are usually just friends sitting on a, Zoom call. I like seeing, like with Searching, they take you places. They just all do it through the use of computers and security cameras and phones and all that kind of stuff. And I like that. I think it's I don't think we've, maybe it's a sister to the found footage subgenre. So it's kind of found footagey. I get it, but I think it's really well done. And although those movies, to your point, could be dated as well because they're using technology that in 15 or 20 years, isn't relevant. But there's technology in Black Christmas and Halloween that's not relevant. I mean, nobody's driving station wagons that look like that anymore. Nobody's using rotary phones anymore, unless it's Me, Billy, chapter 1 and 2, because, the grandmother, and she's older and she likes those phones and whatever. But you know what I mean, right? You're not seeing those phones. I mean, eventually all the cell phones we see in movies will be obsolete as well. So I don't think, as long as it's not, too jarring, but there is that risk. But that's something I wouldn't mind, seeing more of. I don't know. That I think is kind of trendy right now. To your point, the freaky Happy Death Day stuff's kind of trendy. Obviously, the supernatural paranormal's it's still around, and it's been around for a while. But I really do want to see a return to the more cycle. We get them. Hereditary. Things like that. The Ritual. I want to see more films like that, that really dive deep, into the theater of the mind, for sure. That's what I want to see. All right. CM says both good movies. Great. Yeah, I hear the second one's really good, so I definitely want to see it. I definitely want to see it for sure. I have to check it out. Bobby Hall says, Dave, do you think there will ever be another Halloween movie that's connected to the original or any other sequels? Do you think they'll start fresh with a new version of Myers? Well, you never say never, right? I mean, in 20 years, they could do something. They could do another, of course. But do I think that the very next thing that Malekith is going to do is going to be connected to the original? I hope not. Probably not. Although that depends, because if he wants to do a Loomis series that does the backstory of Michael and Smith's Grove, which I hope they don't do, and I've explained why, then that will be connected, although it is a prequel, will be connected to the 78 original. I don't know, man. I just look, they're a business. Malekith wants to strike while the iron is hot. I get it from a business perspective, but you also don't want to outwear your welcome. You don't want to be, you don't want to oversaturate it. I mean, yes, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends did good box office. It was diminishing returns. Halloween Kills made less than Halloween 18. Halloween Ends made less than, Halloween Kills. But they all made over $100 million at the box office. Between all three movies, it was $500 million in gross. That's not what the studio takes home. Okay. There's taxes on that. There's interest they have to pay back. There's, money that goes to the theaters. There's money that goes, at the end of the day, on $500 million, $500 million. Oh my God, it made $500 million. Yes, but the studio doesn't get $500 million. The studio might get, I don't know, 30, 40 million of that. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe a bit more after taxes and interest payments and, the percentage that goes to the theaters, which is got to be at least 40%, if not more. Probably more. But it still made a lot of money. And certainly in comparison to their budget, they definitely made money. And so, but Halloween Kills was, Halloween Ends, So my advice to Malik would be, you don't need to rush it. Let this breathe for a bit. People are still watching it. Nobody's going to forget Michael. My advice would be just let it breathe for a bit. You've got some time to really think about what you want to do. The 50th anniversary is a few years away. Maybe that's when you do it. Now, I know that that's not necessarily striking while the iron is hot, but the last thing you want to do is deliver another movie right at, listen, if there's anything that the Halloween franchise should have taught the Akkads, it's don't, there's a reason why we have 9,721 timelines, and it's because striking while the iron is hot isn't always the best thing to do. So you got to have a great story, a great idea. A great idea. Fantastic idea. And so, don't rush it. There doesn't need to be a Halloween movie this year. There doesn't need to be anything next year. Let it breathe for a bit. Let us miss the franchise. Let us miss it. They even talked about, I know at the 45th convention, they had mentioned, Malik, I think, said something to the effect of, would you guys be open to maybe, I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like, maybe we have like a convention every 2 years instead of every 5 years or something. And I know fans, yeah, let's do it. But I'm just like, well, hey, hang on a sec here. We don't want to, you don't want to, like something I learned from Sean Clark, because he's obviously an agent for a lot of these actors for these conventions. One of the things he says is that when you come on board with me, one of the things I don't want to do is oversaturate you. There's a lot of people that go to every fucking convention, and Sean Clark will say, well, look, you were at that convention 2 years in a row. I don't want to put you in that convention this year. Let's do another thing. Let's do a convention you've never done. Let's do one you haven't done in 5 years. Let's do one in England. Let's do one in Australia. Whatever, right? To kind of, let's not oversaturate you. If Nick Castle shows up at, Bob's Horror, whatever, every year, then chances are he's going to be sitting there one day not signing shit because everybody's got his autograph, right? And so, again, the principle of what I'm talking about is you don't want to oversaturate either. And I know that might sound kind of funny, but it's true. You don't want to have too many conventions. You don't want to have too many I know you made a lot of money. That's great. But, for the health of the franchise moving forward, listen, if Halloween had not been on, life support 8 million times in its life, I would say, well, whatever, right? But I am not convinced that, and I say this with all due respect, but I'm not saying, it's not personal. It's because the evidence is there. I'm basing it on the track record of the pattern of the franchise. This isn't personal. It's not personal to Malik. I'm sure he's an awesome dude. But the history and the pattern of the Halloween franchise is not good when the franchise gets to this point. You know what I mean? It's always like, oh, we need to do this. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And then you end up fucking yourselves over, and then you're, dormant for 10 years. And then yeah, you know what I mean? So there's no rush. Halloween Ends just came out a year ago. We can take our time with this. That would be my advice. He doesn't give a shit what I think. He probably doesn't even like me because I don't talk nice about some of his movies his dad produced, but it's not personal to his dad. That's not personal. Or him. I'm sure he's an awesome guy. But I just feel that as a fan, I'm like, well, let's pump the brakes for a moment here. Like, it's not like Halloween Ends, was, did gangbusters and was just loved by the fans and critics alike. No, it was one of the most, if not the most divisive film in the entire franchise. So let's kind of hold off for a moment and really think what we want to do and just take our time. I don't mean take 30 years. I just mean that, take your time with it. There's no rush. There doesn't need to be anything Halloween this year or next year for that matter. Figure out, what do we do? What is the right thing to do? Is it a video game? Do we want to just focus on that for right now and put all our money and our time and our effort into a real awesome game, like an open world game, like Haddonfield and like that game I always talked about? That'd be so much money. But what I'm saying, like doing something like that? Or do you want to jump the gun and get something, who knows? But listen, it's show business. And at the end of the day, this is about making money. And they do want to strike while the iron is hot. I just hope that whatever creative decision they decide to do proves to be one that is, it doesn't have to be the best thing of all time, but it's one that is, that's good. I like that. We'll see how this goes, right? Don't know. Not really sure, but we'll soon find out. All right, folks. Well, listen, that is going to do it for me here on this Saturday night Q&A, the day before New Year's, my last stream of 2023. I want to thank each and every one of you out there who has supported the channel through super chats, through becoming a channel member, through your donations to the It's Me Billy Chapter 2 Indiegogo campaign, or for just showing up and being here and talking amongst yourselves and asking questions and whatever the case is. I appreciate you all. Even though we may not agree on everything, that's okay. Always remember this moving forward with anybody, especially with me. Me not liking what you like is not me not liking you, unless you do something that is vile, disgusting, and, awful, which some of you have. So then I probably don't like you, because why would I like you? Right? Why would I like you? So beyond that, if you're cool and you're nice and you're just hanging out, yeah, awesome. You're always welcome here, no matter what movie you like or what movie you don't like. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you for hanging out with me. We'll see what 2024 brings. We'll see if we can get back to some different shows here on the channel in the new year, which obviously is my goal, member shows and all that kind of stuff as well. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And thank you, of course, to my great moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, Cody Snyder, and Andrew Stevens. Thank you all for doing what you do. I really appreciate it very much. Yeah, and we'll see what next year brings. I'm very excited to see where it goes and what happens. But you're all amazing. Have a very safe and happy New Year's Eve tomorrow. If you're going to drink, do not drive. Don't be stupid. Have a DD. Crash on your friend's couch. Walk home. Walk to the motel. Whatever you need to do. If you're partying tomorrow night, do not drive. Or do not, if you're drinking, you can party and not drink, of course. I know some people think you can't, but I can. But if you're drinking tomorrow night, yeah, do not drive, of course. But have fun tomorrow night, whatever you're doing. Of course, the older you get, the less you do. I mean, I'll just be at home, hanging out, maybe watching a couple of movies or something. But have a great rest of your Saturday night, folks. I appreciate you, and yeah, and I will talk to you all very soon. This was a good show tonight. I really enjoyed this. This was a good one. Lots of good discussions, diving deep into certain things, talking about, Art the Clown and Freddie and Jason and Michael, and talking about Billy and Hollywood and movies. And I like it when we have these real kind of deep discussions where we get into the nitty gritty and we're just kind of, talking about everything, and it's fun. I really enjoy these kinds of shows, so I appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out with me on this Saturday night, and I will talk to you all soon. Yeah. Oh, and if you're not following me on yeah, you know what? I haven't had my card up there in a while. It's probably not going to show up now. I think I have to actually get it. Yeah, it's not going to show up. If you want to follow me on social media, you can. All my links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content, and when your heart is content, check them out again. All right, folks. I will talk to you all soon. All righty. Cheers.